Ms. Barboa. Do believe it's a little after 5:30. Are we ready? Yep. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our March 5th Governing Board meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to take a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here.
Mr. Romero?
Here.
Dr. Ravi?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here. All 5 of us are here. Thank you. So just a couple items of announcement. It is, like I said, it's early March, and it is Cesar Chavez Education Month. Mexican American Student Services Department will be hosting a month-long event, so please follow them on either their Facebook page or follow on their district website page. There is the Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta Holiday Coalition March and Rally on March 23rd. We do not have a meeting prior to that, so that's why I mentioned this now. It's 9 a.m. at Puebla High School to Rudy Garcia Park to celebrate Cesar Chavez. His birthday is at the end of the month, so please attend if you can. Happy St. Patrick's Day, because again, it will be during spring break, and again, spring break starts technically on Monday, but for the kids, they like to say it starts on Friday. So happy spring break to everybody, and Erin Go Bra for those who celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Okay, we are going to our land acknowledgement statement, and it will be from a student, Tucson High Magnet School, Felista Nabatu. She's in 10th grade. Felista is currently a sophomore at Tucson High. She's come to realize and stimulate her passion for leadership as the sophomore class secretary, member of the TUSD African and African American Student Advisory Committee, National Honor Society, and Model UN Nations, trying as much as possible to push her limits to fight for equality and justice. Aside from school and leadership, she finds her peace in music. On behalf of Felista. Okay. Thank you so much, Felista, and enjoy your spring break. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to head over to our Pledge of Allegiance. And we have Ariana Valenzuela. I do believe she's here. Yes, she is. She's a second grader at Dunham Elementary. She has been there since kindergarten. She loves to color and garden. Ariana is a caring student that enjoys helping other students, as well as her mom and little sister at home. So if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Ariana, you can start whenever you're ready, okay?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ariana, and to her family for having her come and join us today. All right, now we are on to agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo.
Board President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, we have no recommended agenda adjustments this evening.
Fantastic, thank you. So now I think we're rolling into the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. TUSD community, welcome to our first governing board meeting in March. Spring break fast upon us. And just a couple of items to highlight here in my favorite portion of governing board meetings, when we can celebrate staff and student excellence. So let's go ahead and get started for this March 5th. So on February 29th, our African American Student Services, they held their, if we can get the slide, if we can get the slide advanced, that'd be great. I think yeah. Or I could do the clicker. Thank you very much. All right. So on February 29th, we had our African American Student Services Department. They held their 10th annual Black History Month Brain Bowl. The competition between middle school students consisted of 16 teams. Students studied Black history facts in categories such as literature, entertainment, science, and the arts. And it was Dodge Middle School that emerged as champion for this year's African American Student Services Brain Bowl. They have won 5 years in a row. And boy, that dominance is very impressive. I'm sure they'll be in the mix again next year. So let's congratulate Dodge Middle School. Go Bulldogs. At Leonard Keaties Elementary, the school recently hosted its highly anticipated annual Chinese New Year parade, providing students with an immersive experience in the rich traditions of Chinese culture. This event, which seamlessly combines education and excitement, aims to promote literacy amongst students. As part of the festivity, the school organizes a spirited reading competition between classes, with the victorious class earning the esteemed privilege of leading the parade while proudly carrying the magnificent dragon. This vibrant celebration truly embodies the joy and the significance of Chinese New Year festivities. We want to congratulate one of our outstanding competitors from Dodge Middle School, who was recognized on February 20th, the Arizona School for the Deaf and the Blind, as they hosted the Arizona Braille Challenge, where schools from across the state sent students to gather and compete. Among the participants, the Tucson Unified School District Team 6 emerged as the victors, showcasing their exceptional skills. One outstanding competitor, Zoe from Dodge Traditional Magnet School, made history as the youngest and sole completely blind participant in the Junior Varsity League. Zoe's aspirations are to attend Harvard, pursue a career in immigration law, and ultimately become the first blind Supreme Court justice. She serves as an inspiration to all of us. Congratulations, Zoe, on your victory. And I want to thank EEF for their above and beyond support of our newcomer families coming into the Tucson Unified School District from around the world. Tucson Unified School District, of course, renowned for its support of refugee families and communities. EEF has been a big partner in welcoming our newly arrived families into the district. This time they brought together some of our refugee students and their families, showcasing their talents and skills in a soccer competition. EEF's contribution of jerseys for the event added an extra touch of pride and unity. And in the photograph, we can see our victorious Rise team proudly displaying the tip-top trophy that they earned. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Executive Director Don Bell, also recently appointed to our Bond Oversight Committee, for her vision and her support of this event, along with all of the EEF board and team. Got some staff appreciation days now that we are into March. Let us start with National School Social Worker Month. That provides us an opportunity to recognize and appreciate the invaluable contributions of our dedicated social workers. These employees play a vital role in our district. They serve as advocates, counselors, and mentors to our students. The theme this year by the National Association of Social Workers is Empowering Social Workers. There is an item on tonight's agenda for Social Emotional Learning Day in Tucson Unified School District. So let us take this month to celebrate and honor our social workers, not only for their professional expertise, but also for their compassion and commitment to the success and the emotional and social emotional well-being of our students. It's also National Procurement Month. March is an exciting time of year for procurement professionals. The Institute of Public Procurement, the National Institute of Public Procurement, known as the NIGP, has dedicated it as National Procurement Month, a time for the recognition among those in the industry for all of the hard work that they do and the impact that the work has on society and our economy. The TUSD board approved a proclamation during the February 13th board meeting. Our director of purchasing, Diana Kierfoot, had this to say, and I quote, "I love our staff and the support we get from all the district's administrators, teachers, and staff. Our students are totally awesome, and we love purchasing what they need every day to become the best people that they can be. The challenges we have faced, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, have required us to adapt and find innovative solutions. We are truly grateful for all of the district's tireless work in helping us to identify the best suppliers, negotiating favorable contracts, and ensuring that our district receives the best value for every dollar spent." So I want to thank Director Kierfoot and her team for all of the wonderful work they do procuring goods and services for the district, and wish them all a happy National Procurement Month throughout the month of March. And with that, President Luna Rose, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Okay, I do believe we are now on to item 4.1, call to the audience, and I will turn that over to my colleague, Clerk Ekstrom.
Thank you. Public participation at board meetings. Members of the public may speak during call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff, and they will ensure each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware there may be children present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to a criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. Richard Hernandez.
Buenas noches. My name is Richard Hernandez. Les traigo malas noticias. I have bad news for the TUSD family. About a month ago, I wrote an opinion piece to this board. It did not violate any rules, and it was done in compliance with your policies, and Jennifer Ekstrom refused to read it. You violated my civil rights. In this United States of America, we have the right to our opinion. And you publicized that, you just announced it, that you may speak, and you chose not to read it. So I have a question for you. Who do you think you are? To the best of my knowledge, Donald Trump is the only person so far who violates laws and gets away with it. Very simply put, to you three, the majority, Natalie, Ravi, Jennifer, what I said to you is when I came here and encouraged you to appoint Sadie as your chair, the only African-American woman in elected office, it was a 3-2 vote, and I had a tingling you were prejudiced. The very next board meeting, you're trying to cut funds for African-American children. Why? Are they not as good as yours? Are not every child in God's eyes special? Or is it just because they're not the politically correct family? I have 2 asks today. One, you need to read that because you committed to it in its entirety. The second part of that is you need to apologize to these people. I'm from Sunnyside, not from TUSD, but we respect the laws of this country at Sunnyside. You need to assure these folks behind me that you will not violate their laws. You will not violate their civil rights, and you will stand up for every child, every single one. Finally, a second note for those of you in the audience. It is time for you to change your board. If I'm correct, Luna and Ravi are up for election. Get somebody who loves every child. Take that moral high road. Do what's right for every child, not just the special ones. I am asking you, and my guess is you probably have spoken to your legal counsel who told you that you should not have done that. You need to read it, and you need to assure these folks that you will not violate any of their rights either. Children first. You are there because of children. No other reason. Put your ego right there at the door when you walk in. You are here for children. Thank you.
Pilar Reese.
I am Pilar Acosta Ruiz, and I don't have my thing prepared, but I do want to say that, again, in the name of transparency, item 6.1, I do believe, is not very clear that we're having a public hearing on getting rid of DSEG funds. So whether you agree with it or not is not the point. The point is a public hearing is supposed to be announced. It wasn't on the wasn't on the front page of the website. I didn't search for it, but it was not anywhere I could have easily seen it. I don't know that there was any signs on the door. I don't know that an email went out. So other people have been speaking to me about the fact that it wasn't publicly announced, at least not appropriately. So I would urge you to table that issue because it has the appearance of being a sneaky way to get it on the agenda. So, and again, in the sake of transparency, I'm sure somebody looked over the agenda. It could have been pulled, could have been clarified. And I know thank you to those of you who are looking at me as I speak, because I think that's an important sign of respect to your audience. And thank you. Also last week, you guys voted to cut 5% out of certain departments, and it was labeled as central administration. I know that there's contracts, you can't necessarily cut people's salaries, but if you're going to keep talking about cutting boots on the ground, then you need to cut or request a voluntary cut from top administration. 5-10% of everybody's salary should be cut from the top if you're going to ask anybody below to suffer any consequences. Like Richard talked about fighting for all children, it's also about fighting for all employees. And you all know that we have a lot of people making six-digit figures. And when I went through a reorganization at my company, everybody from the top to the bottom took a pay cut, not just the bottom. So, and as far as Robert's rules are concerned, bravo, you're having a thing today, but really, you should already be familiar with those rules in order to hold elected office. Thank you.
Tara Radliff.
My name is Tara Radliff. I will be speaking about the consequences of the dress code policy change. First, let's talk about the supposed inequity of dress code enforcement. Think back to your school days. Do you remember how many boys let their butt hang out of their shorts? None, right? So of course that part of the dress code will mostly affect girls because they are the usual and almost only violators of that policy. What you are saying is that it isn't fair that boys are not reprimanded as much even though they aren't the offenders. Makes no sense. Ms. Luna Rose stated that teachers were feeling forced to look at students, and for a male teacher, that could be a very sticky situation. Let me ask you, does a teacher not look out at their classroom? full of students every day and observe them? Do they not see them enter and exit the classrooms? It's clear that exposure of too much skin was already a problem because teachers felt uncomfortable when they saw it. Not that they specifically looked for it, but because they happened to notice it. At what point does looking at a child become a problem? When will you have to update codes or policies, again, to make sure that teachers don't look at students at all so no one's offended? That's not meant to be funny. This is the path you are taking. Many school employees have college educations. Are you seriously telling me, with all the brain power available at your disposal, the only solution you could come up with was to permit the kids to let it all hang out? There are alternative solutions available that you could have used to help protect the children and teachers, such as using a generic phrase that all teachers could use that would not be offensive when dealing with a violator, such as, "Please go to the nurse's station to fix your clothing." Have you truly thought about the real-life consequences of the changes that were made to the dress code? There unfortunately now will be more skin exposed at school. This in turn will do a number of things. It will make some children and many adults even more uncomfortable, creating a hostile school and work environment. Incidents of sexual misconduct and sexual assaults will inevitably rise, and the increased sexualization of children will contribute to higher promiscuity rates, pregnancies, and STDs. It's not too late to change course. I pray that you find the wisdom and clarity to see and understand what to do and to actively protect the children and have the courage to make the changes that are necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have comments that are going to be read. Governing board members, this is to respectfully request that item 6.1 be removed from the March 5th, 2024 Governing Board meeting agenda for the following reasons. First, the item is not titled correctly under the subject heading since it does not mention any terms that are easily associated with desegregation. Yesterday, before I could access the agenda electronically, I contacted an associate familiar with TUSD board agenda process and desegregation matters to ask if she had reviewed the governing board agenda for March 5th meeting. She responded that there was nothing on the agenda relating to desegregation. Of course, this was due to an inaccurate title/subject of the agenda item. One should not have to click on each separate item of the electronic agenda to determine the subject matter, especially if the item is a notice of a public hearing. Second, within the study/information section of the item, the terms unitary status and post-unitary status appear, which are not user-friendly in the general community. Moreover, the term desegregation has been improperly abbreviated to deseg and should be spelled correctly. Third, the annual report for the 22-23 academic school year is nearly 150 pages, and with the added 10 sections and appendices, the report is several hundred pages long. The item was posted on Friday, March 1st, 2024 for the public hearing on March 5th, 2024. A 3 business day notice and insufficient time to work through the lengthy document. TUSD speaks a good line about the value of parent and community engagement, but much too often creates barriers for parents and community members to become engaged. If the governing board is genuine about seeking public comment on the annual desegregation report, its members might consider offering several discussion sessions throughout the district to inform parents and community members about the document. Subsequently, providing the board with substantive comments on the subject rather than merely listing an item on the agenda. The governing board might also consider allowing members of the public to comment on a document that is hundreds of pages long, includes a great deal of detailed information for more than 2 minutes. Although I know the board members cannot comment directly in response to this, has each member read the annual desegregation report, which includes each member's name on the cover page? I hope you will consider this request and schedule a public hearing correctly and with enough time to allow for substantive comments from the public. Sincerely, Sylvia Campoy. And that concludes our call to the audience.
Thank you. Ms. Ekstrom, board members, would you like to make any response to anybody's comments this evening? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who spoke at the call to the audience today. I agree with Mr. Hernandez's declaration that we did violate his First Amendment rights about 2 meetings ago, and so I hope that we can read his letter that was submitted that wasn't read at our next board meeting, if not the one today. In regards to Ms. Tara's comments on the dress code revision, I just want to say that I did not vote for the dress code to be revised, and I'd like to add to a future agenda a reconsideration of our dress code policy. And also, I agree about item 6.1, and I'll be requesting that that is tabled for a date in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Romero.
And just real quick, I want to thank our speaker, Ms. Radcliffe, to bring that up as a potential problems that we can see with a decision that we made as a board. And again, I hope we can bring that up for reconsideration.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right. Oh, okay. Would like to say thank you to everybody who came and gave us your comments. We do appreciate them. To our first speaker, I don't think that any of us don't do this job for the glamour and the glory and the money, because none of that's happening. We do it because we love kids. We want to see our community better. We want to see this district better. I have a vested interest as an alumni and a parent. So, while anybody can come to our board meetings, if you are not necessarily living in our district, and your tax dollars are not coming to this district, then I think you should, again, you have the right, but I also have the right to respond. So thank you very much on that. And then compared to the letter, and Mr. Ross, are we allowed to read that letter? I know we just closed call to the audience.
Well, if the board doesn't object, then you could go back to an item that's previously closed. There's no action.
Well, board, I'm happy to read the letter. Okay. Do you have it, Ms. Burbo, or I believe? I'll read it. I'm fine. You sure? Okay. We don't have any children here, so thank you.
TUSD Board, I had the opportunity to view your nonverbal response and demeaning disposition towards Sadie Shaw, a duly elected member of the TUSD Board at last meeting. My sense is this affirms what I spoke to you about when I spoke in person to TUSD family in a recent public meeting at Call to the Audience. I was shocked that you would try to save funds while maliciously cutting funds to people of color. This district who lost multiple federal court decisions about abuse of our fellow neighbors and community members. I am certain had it not been for strong presence of community and church leaders, you would have eliminated this opportunity for African American children. You're awful human beings, hiding behind I am Hispanic and minority yourselves. Naranjas, you know that is unacceptable. You are acting Trumponian and hurting children lest you get called out for wrongdoings. I will now make these comments. You're racist. I want this to be read out loud. Why? I sensed it is obvious as the day is long when you failed to make Sadie chair of the board. This attempted to end EDI just affirms you most certainly are racist, my opinion. I can assure you without any doubt, if you were living on the South Side, I would make sure you never get reelected or recalled. Let me share recent history for you too. The only time your mentor leader, Adelita Grijalva, has lost a race by thousands of votes was, you better believe it, when I chaired no fifth term against her. To the TUSD family, do not be in fear. Have no regrets to stand toe-to-toe to haters, no matter what they claim. Actions are stronger than words, and these two board members have shown who they are. I have a suggestion to the board. If you cut 50% of high-paid leadership at TUSD, you could make up financial loss and not affect a single teacher or classroom. To my brothers and sisters at TUSD, fight, fight, fight injustices wherever, whenever you witness them. Richard Hernandez.
Okay, and that takes care of that. Okay, now we are moving on to consent agenda. 5.1 to 5.3, Dr. Trujillo?
Yes, President Luna Rose, governing board members, I'd like to recommend governing board consideration of approval of the consent agenda as arranged, items 5.2 and 5.3.
Okay, I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right, moved by myself, second by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes 5-0. All right, we are now going into the public hearing. Item
of order.
6.1. And I shall read the public participation.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask the board to table this item. I don't believe that it was distributed or made notice in a way that would provide a good faith effort for the community to read the 150-page document and also, know that we were discussing it today. The way that the agenda item was presented was absolutely misleading, and it almost seems to be a violation of open meeting law due to the abbreviated word deseg instead of desegregation, which wasn't in the title, it was in the subtitle. Due to this and other factors, I think we should table it to the next meeting, if not an April meeting.
Mr. Romero?
Can I ask some questions on that, or do I need to second that before we have discussion?
And I'll put that forward in the form of a motion.
Okay, I think you need to second.
I can do this.
No, it's just, okay.
So just some of the questions I have, Mr. Ross, on this public hearing. Is there a certain time limit that we have to have this to be done?
Board members, this is, under the plan, it's supposed to be done in January. Last year we did it around this time. So the sooner it's done, the better to comply with the commitments that were made in the plan.
So, and then as far as for last year when we did this, was there extended time, or was it very similar to this, where like our normal board meetings, we get the report on a Friday, we go through it, and then they had the meeting last time, do you recall?
Well, there are a couple of pieces to that, and I think it was going to be addressed shortly, but the report was actually publicly available in November. The notice of this public hearing was several weeks ago. The board agenda item was posted along with every other board agenda item on Friday.
So there has been...
And that's basically the same as it was last year, although I think Mr. Aronoff would have better detail on that.
Mr. Aronoff?
So yes, the timing is very similar to last year. The annual report is posted every year, November 1st, on the district's DSEG page, which is dseg.tusd1.org. It has its own section, and there's also a section in there that has public notices, and so that's also where we post notices of PIAs. That's where we posted notice. I think it was about a couple of weeks ago that we were having the public hearing for the annual report this year. Everything about the BAI, the agenda item, is pretty much exactly the same as it was last year, and the timing is very similar.
And then I'm guessing this isn't a new thing, so this has happened on all these prior years. We have to have this public hearing on a yearly basis, and it's due in November the year before, correct?
So this is only the second time that we are doing it within the board, because this is only the second time we're doing it since we obtained unitary status. It used to be that the annual report went to the court. There was a whole process around that. Once TUSD achieved unitary status, that process basically became owned by the board. And the plan, the post-unitary status plan, describes the annual report, describes the timing, the process for posting, and so that's now what we're following.
Perfect. And if we were to postpone this, would be more violation?
It's not necessarily a violation. You know, the board could certainly do that. As we said, you know, the board owns it. Part of the goal is, you know, to be able to consider these issues in time for subsequent actions. Like, you know, later on there will be the budget conversation. This annual report is not about the upcoming, you know, DSEC budget conversations. This is about the annual report, which covers last year's activities. So certainly the board could move it, but as Mr. Ross pointed out, we are a little bit behind where we are supposed to do it under the plan, and so ideally we'd like to move forward. But we could also, well, I'll leave it with that.
I appreciate you filling me in on that. But this information has been known that it always comes out in November. These last 2 years, it comes out in November. And then, so public does have access to it if they know what they're looking for.
That's right.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.09A, agenda items should contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. Not only that, public hearings must be conspicuously posted on a website stating where all public notices of their meetings will be posted. And if you look at our website, the public notice of this hearing was not conspicuously posted. It's under the Families tab. Then you have to go to desegregation. Then you have to click public notices. And so it was not conspicuously posted, which in my estimation is a violation of open meeting law. I think we should table this item and let the public know on our front page, as it should be, so that we are doing a good faith effort in looking for public opinion and public comment on how we are using our desegregation funds.
I'd be willing to second that because we have heard from our community on this.
Well, the only way I could support it, and I think we should do it now, but because it has been posted, we have not violated anything. So, but for sake of transparency, can
Point of order.
No,
Mr.
ma'am,
Ross,
ma'am, I am not done, ma'am, I am not done.
Point of order.
I am not done. Point of order on myself. Thank you very much. My thing is if I support this, can we make sure this gets done the last meeting of March?
Well, you'll find out later on in the agenda when we look at Robert's rules that point of order, I can interrupt the speaker. And so I'd like to ask Mr. Ross if he could speak on the potential violations of open meeting law in ARS 38-431.09A.
Board members, I'd be happy to provide legal advice on that in an executive session. I don't think it's wise to do that in an open session.
Okay, well then I would like to call for us to go into executive session, please.
Second.
Oh. All right. All those in favor, so moved by Ms. Shaw, or I guess I'll move in the second executive session, seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we're going to go to executive session for a few minutes. Thank you. All right, we are back. Thank you very much. Ms. Barboa, I do believe we have a motion on the floor. I'd like to table the public hearing till the following meeting. So could I get a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
Yes.
Dr. Ravi?
No.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes. Okay, item.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
I make a motion that we do have some people here that might be wanting to speak to this item. So instead of having them having to come back to another meeting, can we have a forum for them to speak to this item if they wanted to?
I'm okay with that if that is the pleasure of the board.
Yes.
Okay, we do. So speakers who would like to come up, do we have a few, Ms. Barboa?
We had one.
One?
Ms. Pilar Reese.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for making a good decision. And hopefully when you announce it next, it will be in multiple places. It'll go out in an email and it'll be adequately labeled. Yeah, because we don't need to be trying to be sneaky on the agenda anymore. Thank you.
Any further comment? Okay, so Dr. Trujillo, we can put this on the agenda for, I believe, March 26th is when we come back?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on to 7.1, administrative appointments, reassignments, and transfers. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, TUSD community, we have an opportunity here to welcome two brand new administrators currently serving as interims in their respective assignments. Look forward to governing board consideration of welcoming them into the TUSD family. We'll begin with Wakefield Middle School. Tonight's recommendation, proud native of Augusta, Georgia, coming to us from the land of the peaches, making her journey from the south here to the old Pueblo. She previously had served as a principal of Monte Sano Elementary School out there in Augusta, and also did some early learning education there in the Richmond County school system. She's been serving for the last year as the interim principal at Wakefield Middle School, done an absolutely outstanding job connecting with students and staff and community. And tonight I am proud to recommend Mrs. Josephine Elaine to serve as the principal of Wakefield Middle School.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. I'll move the item.
All right. Moved by Ms. Shaw.
I'll second.
A second by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Congratulations. And if you would like to say a few words.
Definitely. I have enjoyed my first year at Wakefield Middle School as the interim principal, and I'd like to say thank you to the board and Dr. Trujillo for the honor and the privilege of continuing to serve the Wakefield community. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've got a line there to congratulate you behind you. Okay, we are moving on to item 7.2, administrative appointments, reassignments, and transfers, Principal Holiday Elementary Magnet School. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose. Tonight, I'd like to recommend our other outstanding administrator currently serving as the interim principal. Did some work out there in the nation's capital, working in the Washington, D.C. area before at the Washington School for Girls before coming out here to the old Pueblo and serving at Our Mother of Sorrows School, a small pre-K-8 private school, a faith-based community, served as its principal there before accepting the assignment to Holiday Fine Arts Magnet Elementary, where she also has done an outstanding job filling some really big shoes of her predecessor, but has done a great job there, also connecting with kids, community, and parents, and moving the school forward. So tonight I'm proud to recommend as Holiday's principal, Miss Shekenia Humphreys Golson.
Come on. come, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm so excited for you already. So, okay.
Thank you.
I'll move the item.
Okay, moved by Ms. Ekstrom,
Second.
second by Ms. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, ayes have it, 5-0. Congratulations, Ms. Humphrey.
Thank you so much.
So if you want to give us, welcome to say a few words.
Sure. Good evening, Board, Dr. Trujillo, Legal Counsel. It really is an honor and privilege to be in TUSD. When I moved to Arizona, it was to be closer to family, and never in a million years did I think I'd be the principal of the school where my grandmother matriculated. So thank you so much. I can't wait to continue to do the great work here at TUSD.
Thank you. And I do believe, once Ms. Humphrey goes through the congratulation line, that we've got some photos.
We have the customary photo op with governing board and superintendent when our newly appointed administrators finish their congratulations.
Okay. Board members, thank you.
They're not here for us. It's all about you.
Okay, thank you so much. Always exciting for new principals and new staff. All right, we are on to 7.3, Proclamation, Social Emotional Learning Day in Tucson Unified School District, March 8th, 2024. Dr. Trujillo.
President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, I'd like to welcome Dr. Flory Hewitt, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, as well as our Director for Socio-Emotional Learning and Development, Julie Shivananda, to celebrate Socio-Emotional Learning Day in our schools across the Tucson Unified School District. Take it away.
All right. Yes, thank you. Good evening, President Luna Rose, Dr. Trujillo, esteemed governing board. Dr. Hewitt and I are both very excited to be here to read a proclamation naming March 8th National SEL Day and recognizing that in the Tucson Unified School District. Before I begin, just wanted to thank you all ahead of time for your ongoing support of the social emotional wellness needs of our students, our staff, and our community. So I will go ahead and start the reading. So, Social Emotional Learning SEL Day Proclamation, March 8th, 2024. Whereas social emotional learning, SEL, is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Whereas teaching SEL competencies helps today's students be safe, skilled, and ready to learn, and are essential to succeed in school, the workplace, at home, and in the community. Whereas results from extensive research show that SEL interventions that address the 5 core competencies, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making, increase academic performance by 13 percentile points, improve students' abilities to manage stress, and improve attitudes about self, others, and school. Whereas investments in evidence-based SEL programs create safer and more supportive classrooms by decreasing school dropout rates by 5 to 12%, decreasing physical aggression, and decreasing bullying. Whereas top companies are emphasizing the importance of social and emotional skills such as self-awareness, self-management, and responsible decision-making for success in the next generation of employees and entrepreneurs, and teaching SEL competencies prepares today's students to be tomorrow's leaders. Whereas research shows that investments in evidence-based SEL programs can lead to improved educational achievement and long-term benefits to society, and therefore, the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District does hereby proclaim the second Friday in March, this year will be March 8th, 2024, as Social Emotional Learning Day, and encourages all community members to learn about and share their knowledge of the importance and impact of integrating evidence-based SEL into our schools, organizations, and community.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I would like to move the item.
Second.
Moved by myself, second by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you so much for coming. And I just want to say that, you know, this is so important in our district. And I wish this had been part of the district when I was going as a student here, when I matriculated through. And I'm sure, you know, public schools across the country would have benefited from this. And so I'm glad that we continue to be a leader in it and appreciate your work. So thank you.
Absolutely, and I wholeheartedly thank this amazing governing board for recognizing that social emotional learning is imperative in supporting our students. So thank you for being change makers and ensuring that we are focusing on this for our students.
Thank you. Okay. So I do believe we are on to item 8.1, fiscal year 25 cost projections for additional monitor and custodial staffing. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, governing board members, members of the public. The next 5 items really kind of encapsulate what the focus here is this evening, which is really a study session in a series of issues and items that we've been waiting to get in front of the governing board. There will be no action on these items this evening as they are study information, but important conversation points for some decisions that could possibly need to be made as we get into budget planning later on this spring. So starting first, we have seen a heightened awareness, of course, around school safety, school security, the presence of a high quality security and safety infrastructure. Part of that infrastructure, of course, is the presence of monitors. We've also heard some of our parents coming at call to the audience, some members of the community asking about the possibility of additional monitors. So we're here kind of giving the board some different scenarios and some of the budgetary impact of such scenarios in which the board would add additional monitors at specific grade bands in schools. So Ricky Hernandez, our CFO, is here to take us through.
Good evening, board members. I'm just waiting for the presentation. And I'll just speak to the context of what you're seeing right now. There, with the board agenda item, I did provide a staffing analysis for both campus safety positions and custodial staff positions across the different schools in the district, just to kind of show you status of where we are and other data points and what it would look like based on changing certain ratios. That's really just more supplemental information that you can, you know, if you ever feel like going cross-eyed, you know, this is a perfect way to do it. But I'll just wait for the PDF to come up.
It'll be just a moment. Thank you.
It's a good time for a water, potty.
Snack.
There we are.
Okay. All right, Mr. Hernandez, you're on.
Thank you. So, good evening once again. So, this is, as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, looking at some projected costs of additional campus monitors, campus security, as kind of I called them throughout the presentation, and custodial staff for fiscal year 25, as we've had conversations regarding the need of some of these positions throughout the schools in the district. So, just as some background, this is our current staffing levels. So the formula currently for custodians in grades K through 8, whether it's K-8 schools or middle schools, is we provide them the prior year FTE, but never anything less than 2 FTE. Whereas high schools, we've been carrying over the prior year FTE, and I'll kind of talk about what that prior year FTE has been. For monitors, specifically the campus monitors in grades K through 8, we also continue the prior year position and never anything less than a 1.0. In high schools, we've done a prior year FTE as well. So we've just been kind of recycling the same positions. But the formulas have been frozen since fiscal year 2020. So as needs have arisen in both of these positions throughout the schools, we'll have conversations with principals or our regional superintendents in regards to some of the needs, and we will staff accordingly. So I know that there have been other changes regarding both custodians and campus monitors on an ad hoc basis, so outside of the formula, that isn't necessarily standardized because the formula has been frozen since fiscal year 20. Originally, it was developed, the custodian specifically was developed around an allocation of a quarter of an FTE for every 150 students. There was, when I looked at the records from, kind of prior administrations, they did focus on a multitude of factors. So there was the, enrollment was considered, the physical plant. Obviously, we've got larger campuses, smaller campuses that are kind of very oddly kind of set, and program considerations, right? If we have more students, for example, that have, if we have campuses that have larger populations of students in special ed classrooms, for example, we might have considerations around those. But the allocations vary between grade level and enrollment. So currently there isn't necessarily a consistency around those. Now, monitors in particular, in the box on the right, you'll see this is kind of the allocation that was put out before the formula was frozen. K-8s, under 350 were given an allocation of dollars, which is why now currently we have these positions called school elementary monitors that are really not positions. They're mostly supplemental. So we've got some people who out there in our elementary schools, for example, and some of our K-8s, where they have these school elementary positions and then they are supplemented by others, other positions. So they may be a TA with a school elementary monitor so that they can have like a full-time job. That's just kind of historically what's been maintained. Then we got in, as you got closer to 600, you got 1 FTE. Over 600, you got 2 FTEs. High schools just got a flat 4.0. Now, none of our high schools are really at that 4.0. And like I said, I provided you those charts with that individual detail that you can look. We've got high schools all over the place. Tucson High has, well over almost a dozen campus monitors, for example. So that's currently what we're looking at. The current investment of custodial staff is about $10.6 million in staffing costs. We've got 240 FTE, which represents 253 individual custodians at the site level. The average ratio right now is 172 students for every one custodian. For the campus safety positions, and the reason I call them campus safety is because in the high schools, we've got a mix of both campus monitors and school safety agents. So not all of them are campus monitors. The campus monitors exist more at the elementaries, middles, and K-8 schools. There we spend about $6.4 million in total wages. We've got about 187 FTE that represent 281 people. That ratio is closer to 212 campus safety personnel to every one student or every one staff member. This is the current projection for custodians. So in the blue boxes, you see what we currently allocate, right? So what does it look like if we were to allocate across all grades based on changing a different ratio or setting a specific ratio? So right now, our 172 to 1 is 240 with a cost of 10.6 million. As you decrease it from there, so the lowest one would be 100 students for every one custodian. We need an additional $211, and we need to spend an additional $9.3 million. And it goes from there. Obviously, the closer you get to 172, the lower the amount of FTE that you would need to invest, and therefore the cost that's associated with them. If you break it down by grade level, so then you start taking a look at elementaries, at K-8s, at middle schools, at high schools, the costs change across that, kind of the spectrum, right? So you go as, right now we invest 95 and a half FTEs at 4.1 million in just elementary schools. If we wanted to take that down to keep that like at around a flat 100, we'd need another 71 and a half FTE, another $3.1 million. And it goes all around depending on what type of investment we want to look at for custodians. Now, I will caution that this does not take into account square footage or the physical plant of our schools, right? So for example, one example that I know off mind is White Elementary on the southwest side. They're a fairly large campus. Under formula, they get 2 FTE. But based on the square footage and just how much space they've got down there that is essentially all used, they really should have 3 FTE. They were provided an additional FTE for this fiscal year because of the level of work that needs to get done to keep that campus essentially tidy. And that's an example of kind of how we have to kind of take into account the fact that it's not a very large school in terms of population, but in terms of plant size, it definitely is significantly larger than some of our other elementary schools. Then you start taking a look at campus safety projections, right? So I really only focused on K-8s, middles, and high schools, since that's really where the campus monitor allocation is focused at. Right now, a 212 to 1, about 187 FTE and a $6.4 million cost. If we wanted to take that down to 150 to 1, we need an additional 120.6 FTE, and we need to invest another $4.1 million to take that. And I know that 150 to 1 is something that's kind of been talked about. When you break it down between the K-8s and middles and then the high schools separately, the current allocation is obviously greater at the K-8s and 6-8s just because we have more of those versus high schools. But you'd need an additional 32 FTEs in the high schools and an additional investment of $1.1 million to get the high schools, all of the high schools, to 150 to 1. And it just goes from there. Obviously, because right now the ratio is smaller, than 200 to 1 and 250 to 1, you start kind of going into the negatives. We would never recommend, obviously, reducing any of these campus monitor positions, but it's just kind of how the math starts working out. So, we started taking a look at, where are the most concentration of students? Obviously, in our high schools, these 6 are essentially our largest high schools in TUSD. You can see their enrollment altogether and what their FTE to campus safety student ratios look like and how many FTEs they have. And I'll just kind of go through the totals. We've got about, at Choya, Pueblo, Rincon UHS we treat as one campus, which is why they've got 2,100 students. Sabino, Saguaro, and Tucson High all combined have just under 10,500 students. The average ratio is 253 students to every one campus safety staff. We've got about 41 FTE all told to protect essentially those 10,000 students. We invest about $1.6 million. If we take that to 150 to 1 in just these 6 schools, we'd need to allocate an additional just under $1.1 million and find an additional basically 32 FTE to get them to 150 to 1. And then the math moves on from there. You know, once you get to 250 to 1, I mean, investing 3 is really not going to move the needle for a lot of these campuses. The campuses that are not on here, you know, right now have very small populations that are essentially much lower than Sabino, Catalina, Santa Rita, for example, are not on here. Innovation Tech as well is not here. But the focus was, what do we look at the targeted high schools in terms of an investment that takes into account, again, different ratios for different targeted student populations. Now, I provided some comparisons to school districts that are similar to ours, not necessarily, well, not based in Arizona, I should say. Most of the Arizona school districts I looked at, they don't really have ratios, at least publicly, that they can talk about. But these, you know, some of these are significantly larger. Some of these look like us, Albuquerque and El Paso, for example. And you'll look at most of these custodian formulas, they focus on square footage with a minimum, right? So they don't really take a look at the students. Students may be a factor in some of them, like in Tulsa. But square footage tends to be the common denominator amongst Austin, Albuquerque, and Tulsa. El Paso doesn't have a custodial allocation. They just manage all the custodial services centrally. They're not necessarily assigned at sites. Campus safety is more all over the place. They focus on different grade spans. They focus on whether you have SROs versus, you know, some of them have security guards or campus safety assistants. So one of the elements that's in here that we don't necessarily have in TUSD is the SRO. Like in Austin and Albuquerque, you know, in middle and high schools, they assign SROs as part of their campus safety protocol and staffing, and then they assign additional security guards or additional campus safety assistants. Like in Albuquerque, they have one element that is kind of unique. Not only do they look at enrollment, and not only do they look at grade span and enrollment, but they also take a look at service calls. What kind of actual activities happening on those campuses to merit potentially additional FTE to service their campuses? In Tulsa, for example, they don't necessarily have campus monitors assigned to schools. They've got school safety officers that patrol the district. They're not necessarily assigned to grades outside of high school, right? So their focus is their high schools, but they're not assigned to specific schools. They're just assigned to the district to just kind of, if you want to consider it kind of like a police force that isn't necessarily focused on one neighborhood. So, you know, we're sort of in the middle here, but there are elements that are focused in these 4 big school districts that are not part of the way that we staff custodial and campus safety staff. But additional considerations to focus on beyond just the ratios in custodial staff, and similarly to campus safety, I've mentioned it before, school physical plant. You know, custodial staff, if it's a bigger place to mess up, it's just going to need that much more cleaning. If you've got a bigger house, you got more cleaning to do. That's really what's going to happen. Same thing with safety, right? If you've got a larger area to patrol, especially if you've got, you know, kind of the nooks and crannies that students are aware of versus staff, you're going to need to know what those are. Enrollment, obviously, larger populations need more focus. Grade level, bigger kids, right? You know, an 18-year-old senior versus a 9-year-old 4th grader are very different. And the only thing that's different for campus safety from custodial staff is just considering the safety and security infrastructure that's already in place, right? That could potentially mitigate some of the safety concerns that our campuses have. That could potentially mitigate some of the staffing, not necessarily replace the fact that you don't, you know, if you add cameras, you can get rid of a monitor, but that could actually inform how you balance out based on resources that we currently have. So it's just some additional elements to take into account. And obviously, you know, Greg Meyer, the director of facilities, and Joe Hallam's, who manages school safety, they can talk to these in greater length than I could. But these are kind of the larger elements to take into consideration as we talk about additional staffing levels. So with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. for your presentation. Board members, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. Thank you for this presentation. Question about the custodial staff. So we talk about the total salary of $10.6 million. Is that including on administrative buildings that don't have students in them?
No, these are just schools.
You're just a school.
These are just schools.
So there's
yeah.
additional custodial costs for our administrative buildings.
Correct.
Do we know how much that is?
I don't know off the top of my hand how much that is. It is not as significant as these campuses because we're talking about 88 different campuses, physical plants versus the administrative facilities.
Do you or if Mr. Meyer is able to weigh on this, you anticipate that once we move out of 1010 into the new building, that's going to increase or decrease the custodial staffing needs, and especially after we consolidate some of the other buildings into the new administrative building, what's that going to mean in terms of the administrative custodial staff? And does that require more money? Does it free up some money to be able to invest more into our schools?
Good evening, everyone. So I think that's a really good question, and the exciting thing about going to the TEP building or USA, whatever we want to label it at this point, is that we will be able to reduce some of those costs. There's no doubt about that because we're going to be in one building. Obviously, it's a bigger building. It's an 88,000 square foot building, somewhere in that range. But the building itself is in good condition, as I know you're well aware. And so I could see where that could definitely help us in terms of just the overall custodial care that we would need as a result of us combining these different buildings.
Okay, so if this ever comes back to us for an action in the future, can we make sure we incorporate that projection into it?
We could sure do that, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, board members? Mr. Romero.
You had mentioned that this is going to our school safety. You had mentioned in some of the high schools that you don't just have monitors there, but we do have school safety that are also into those schools. And does that vary, kind of like the other one showed, like the floating school safety coming on in? Do they just kind of also do the same type of thing?
Yeah, they vary. Some of them are assigned to specific campuses, and they're part of the campus safety allocation. I don't know necessarily how the school safety department targets them, why Tucson may get more than Pueblo per se. Joe could probably speak to that better than I could. But yeah, those are incorporated as part of the formula. So when we account for the FTE and what they should get, we take a look at those together because they're specifically assigned to those campuses. They're not necessarily roving. The roving is above and beyond because we do have roving school safety officers that are not necessarily assigned to campuses, but that are essentially assigned to be district-wide, that then kind of do the patrolling and the monitoring based on school safeties.
Okay. And then maybe Joe might need to answer this question, but when we used to have the SROs, did we have less monitors, same amount of monitors? Was there a stronger safety we felt that we had in our schools?
I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, SROs were not part of the equation when I took this position.
Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, the monitor ratio was the same. There was no adjustments. We primarily had school resource officers through the Arizona School Safety Grant. We used to get 6 of them. The county has always provided, or the sheriff's department has always provided SROs out at Valencia, Sabino. I think the one that's out at Valencia also covers, it's the other big school, Pister, pro bono, free of cost. We've always been charged for the 6 that used to come out of the school safety grant, but even during those days, there was no impact on the ratios that you see here this evening, which have been pretty firmly established for several years now.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. And this might be a question for Mr. Hallam. So looking at this slide here with the different high schools, I think Mr. Hernandez mentioned some schools using different models like number of calls and everything. Like we see a big difference from 207 to 290 to 1 ratio. Do we know, like, is it to meet the calls needs, or is there a discrepancy in terms of meeting like the calls or incidents needs?
That's something we're currently evaluating, and we're, with our new computer-aided dispatch, we're going to be able to really dig into that data and evaluate that, calls for service and therefore need.
But the number of monitors are really based on the site. You know, as he spoke to earlier, they have to have a minimum number, but the site itself has just kind of grown into the number of monitors they may have assigned to that specific school. So there is no, you know, every site has their own control over how many they would have. Does that answer your question?
It seems like the data is not available yet on that.
Correct, yeah. And that's something we're really trying to evaluate in the future, and you know, how we can be more intelligent with allocating our resources across the district. It's just taking some time to mine that data and get enough information to actually have an intelligent response.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Shaw.
Question about the school safety officers. Are school sites that are high school requesting more school safety officers? Because I thought this conversation was kind of initiated for more just campus monitors.
Yeah, I'll throw that over to you, Mr. Helms. I know we have them embedded in the high schools, and they kind of employ, I think, a regional approach, or they work some of those feeder schools. Can you speak a little bit about the role of the school safety officer in the high schools?
Sure, without going in too deep in it, but during the day, during the school day, we have 10, we refer to them as Lincoln units or school safety supervisors out in the field. So it's basically one per site with one rover, because we have one at UHS Rincon. And then they're responsible for what would be their feeder schools in the general vicinity as well of those high schools. But their offices are based out of the high schools. They're implanted within that high school, but again, serving the other schools in the nearby as well.
Okay, but I think my question is about, like, if that's something that each school site, high school specifically, are asking more for monitors or for school safety officers, or both, because I thought the conversation was mainly about more monitors from what I've heard from like sites like Pueblo and Tucson High.
No principal, I'm going to let everybody in here on a secret. No principal is going to say no to more monitors, right? That is one of the more popular requests that we have, especially at our larger high schools, where there's just a lot more ground to cover for the monitors. You see places like Choya and Pueblo and our UHS, and even Tucson High, even though they have 11, they're still dealing with 1 to 262. Not only are there higher student to monitor ratios, there's just physically more ground to cover when you have a disruption. So the ask is always there every year for more monitors, absolutely. I will share with the governing board that we are working with Mr. Hallams, and also I'll speak to custodial in a moment. But one of the goals that we have, an overarching vision, is for a standardized framework of what it means to be a campus monitor, which means a standardized set of professional expectations and norms in the way that monitors handle situations, de-escalate conflict, handle evidence, work incidents. That's something we've never really pursued across the district. And with Mr. Hallams and the school safety officers now, we're now going to be working on what's going to be called a shared supervision model, where you'll see school safety take lead on that professional development, that training, that establishment of standardized professional expectations, while still having principals involved in weighing in on evaluations and how monitors are relating to the community. I think that that's an important step for us before we're necessarily assigning more monitors to a campus and spending more dollars. I think we have a responsibility to look at our current allocations and train them up and make sure that they're as efficient and as effective, working under a standardized framework. And we haven't been there. I think what you've heard in this presentation is pretty much that schools are pretty much autonomous in the extent to which that they're training their campus monitors and making sure that they're prepared for the job. Part of Mr. Hallam's vision coming into school safety leadership is to have them more professionally trained and prepared so that they mirror the training and the professional development that's given to the school safety officer. So that's really what we're going to be pursuing. And it's in that same spirit. We're going to be doing the same with custodians. The same challenges that we've had with school safety, we've also had with custodians. in terms of, although I would say custodians are further along down the road in terms of standardized expectations for interior and exterior cleaning standards, we still have a ways to go. We're also going to be pursuing a shared supervision model with Mr. Meyer and his team and the campus principal to make sure that the same thing's happening on that side of the house, that there is a standardized framework for job performance and expectations. That's really our recommendation in terms of before the board considers sort of these really large-scale staffing investments. Let's take a look at what we can do for efficiencies first with training and professional development, and then see what that does before we're coming back with hard and fast staffing recommendations.
Mr. Romero.
Have the monitors requested this type of information, or we've talked to also the other monitors at the schools can kind of get some of their feedback also?
Mr. Helms?
We do, currently we do some ongoing training with it. It's challenging to get that information, or to get monitors to, if they're released from the schools or so on and so forth. And during those times, we have dialogue with them. Some report back that they want more, they want more. They want the additional training. They want to be better equipped to be more efficient and be better at their jobs and be safer and create a safer environment. Others are, not as open to having that. They've done what they've done for a long time, and they've never had any problems with it, so they don't see a need of a change.
Okay. Well, I kind of like the positive reinforcement of training these monitors to be excel a little bit more. So thank you for moving forward on that.
I have a question, and I don't know if it's Mr. Hernandez or Mr. Helms. So I know these are just projected costs and something to look forward to the future, but are there any school safety grants or anything that the district's utilizing to maybe offset some of this cost? Dr. Trio?
So the major grant is, of course, the Arizona School Safety Grant. And I don't want to say too much, but I know Joe has done some great work with our lobbyists, really weighing in on positions that would be beneficial to TUSD to be covered under that grant. And the winds are blowing in the direction of now allowing for what would essentially be school safety officers to be covered under that grant, as well as retired law enforcement officials working in sort of a school safety officer role, which is basically what a lot of our folks do. And that wasn't the case before. So I think we're going to start to see some relief if it gets through this legislative session and the current verbiage stands. We're going to have a greater capacity to be able to cover school safety office salaries with grant funding, which could open up some possibilities in your regular M&O budget to take another look at some of these staffing ratios.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are on to 8.2, TUSD Summer School, full steam ahead. Dr. Trujillo.
President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, this is my favorite time of the year. I love summer school. I love TUSD summer school. A lot of moving parts, a lot of excitement in the air. I want to welcome our Assistant Superintendent for Leadership and Student Success, Mr. Frank Armenta, who always partners with our our Director for Curriculum Development, Heidi Aranda. It's a team approach between Mr. Armenta's office and curriculum to get this off the ground. So take it away, Mr. Armenta.
Good evening, President Natalie Rose, board members, Dr. Trujillo, legal counsel, and staff that is here to help us tonight. I am here, as Dr. Trujillo said, to talk a little bit about summer school. Also, I couldn't get this job done, this work done, without Heidi Aranda or Deanna McLemore or Tammy Tullis. So we've been working on this, and we're going to share some information for you tonight, and we're open to hear some questions at the end. So I'll go ahead and turn this over to Heidi.
Oh, sorry. All right. Good evening, governing board members. So we're excited to present to you our plan tonight for summer school 2024. There are some things that are staying the same. There are some things changing. And so we're excited to share summer school outlook. So just to give you a little bit of history, the last 3 summers we have been fortunate to have ESSER funding
fully funding our summer school program. So we offered a very robust program that involved all of our sites and all of our students. And so as we are now reducing the amount of money allocated to summer school as we run our last summer school with ESSER funding, we are going to still offer summer school to all sites, but we this year have identified students in need for additional support and summer school opportunities. And so you will see that it is available at all sites, but only this year to identified students in order to stay within our budget. And then we will look forward to what the plan is for future summers in TUSD. We'll get together a focus group, but also possibly, have the board look at identified funding sources for summer school as we won't have ESSER in future years. So just to give you an idea of how we plan summer school, we start in the fall, right away working with our finance department, identify funding sources, and begin to plan and allocate that funding. Then we start meeting with departments, because many departments are involved and engaged in the summer school programs, language acquisition, advanced learning, just a whole array of programs. And so we meet with them, we present our plan to leadership, and then we begin to present to principals and get our principals involved, which we did in February, and have them start hiring coordinators for their site. Tonight, we had our first meeting with coordinators, because it says March, coordinator training. We had our first meeting with our coordinators so they can start recruiting their staff, recruiting their students, and setting up their program for success. Summer school will then, we begin to train everyone. We have multiple trainings with coordinators and teachers so that they know how to address the needs of the students and are well-trained in the curriculum they will be using. And then we begin summer school actually in May, in high school, and June for K-7. So this year for K-7, we are going to continue offering full steam ahead. Even though we have identified our students for academic needs, having an enrichment program is absolutely vital. So you'll still see fine arts sessions in the K-7 programs, as well as that STEM component that our teachers and our students have loved the last few years. We'll do 4 weeks of summer school, June 3rd to the 27th, and TUVA will offer their online program.
And as we move over into high school, we will focus on what's called response to intervention in the credit recovery. We will also offer acceleration. Since we are using ESSER funds, we want to ensure that we give that opportunity for students to continue to accelerate that. That will be on all of our campuses. As we identified here, we'll start session 1 May 29th. It's a Wednesday, so it gives our teachers an opportunity to have a prep day before we get started into summer school. Then session 2 will start the 12th. As we also identified, Juneteenth is also there for our observation of that holiday. And then they're running 8 to 2, a little over 5.5 hours on that campus. And then again, Tucson High has also opened their doors for us to run a PM session, which last year we had several students who attended that district-wide. So Ms. Liz Savalier has run that. It's been a great opportunity for us to have that PM session. Again, something that we learned through ESSER is that we wanted to offer Freshman Academy to have a focus for students to get high school ready. So we will continue to offer that opportunity on all of our campuses, and this will be an 8 to 12 session. A shorter session, but again, an opportunity for students to work, as we identified here, strengthening their AVID skills, using iReady and iExcel as Tier 2 support for those students to identify some of their learning gaps that they need. And then also we're infusing this year, we're going to do something called an empowerment bridge, identifying those students who need additional support to really help them with their student agency as they transfer in to high school. And we'll be working with the regionals, alternative ed, also student relations to identify these students. It will be a program that's embedded within the Freshman Academy, so we look forward to that empowerment. And then also, TUVA will continue to run their self-scheduled, formerly known as COLE, through their online program during the summer and through June. And just a reminder, please put your on your calendars. We will have summer graduation. It's the TCC, but as we all know, it was changed to the Linda Ronstadt Center. So we will be there again at the TCC for graduation. So, and that will be, I think, at 6 o'clock.
All right. To accommodate the budget this year, we worked with more of a formula-driven allocation to our sites. And so we looked at their regular school year enrollment, and we wanted to serve 20% of their students. So they were allocated one teacher for every 100 students of enrollment. We rounded up we rounded to the nearest 100. Class sizes, we did bump them up so that we can serve more kids, 15 to 20 students. We do like to keep our class sizes smaller in the summer so that we can really target the students' needs and skills. They will also have monitors at sites, and our office staff, who doubles as an enrollment specialist in the summer, will be there 5 days a week, even though the program is only there 4 days a week, so that they can be there to enroll students all summer.
Right. And as we move into high school, we've also made some adjustments here, and I'll identify that in the counselor area. But we will continue to support the high school experience with one coordinator. Also, we'll be a freshman academy coordinator, so we'll have 2 coordinators to work through that process this summer. In this, we'll also identify one FTE, meaning one teacher, for 15 students through 25. How we do this, we make sure that we allocate those as they get to the 25, and we make sure that we give them their additional teachers for that. We've also made sure that they had started off with at least 2 to 3 teachers in each of those areas, high school as well as freshmen, to make sure they can start doing their hiring. This is an area where I made some adjustments, again, due to the reduction in our funding, but I think it's a positive one. And the reason I say that is because I was able to work with some of our counselors last summer to listen to some of their needs. And some of the needs that they wanted, as well as the coordinators, were they wanted some prep time to help the coordinator identify these students. So what we did this year is we moved 40 of those hours during this time from now through May, so they can coordinate with the coordinator to identify these students. And again, as I stated, I've worked with some counselors that identify that they want those prep hours. We also looked at this area as an area to cut a little bit, but it went from 7 hours to 5, so we reduced it to 2 hours, but it's still the 20 days. And this is where counselors were flexing that time during the summer, so we could then move those hours a little to the forward so they can help out. And again, working with the principals, the counselors, and the coordinators, they were able to still meet the needs that we had during session 1 through session 2, and then also identifying those students for graduation. In this case, we also want to make sure that they have monitors. They will continue to have one monitor for freshman academy and then a second one for summer school.
So one of the one of the things that we're really proud of this year is we worked with a committee last year to strengthen our multi-tiered system of support in TUSD. And one of the great things that came out of that was an identification criteria to identify students that should have interventions in place, should have an MTSS plan in place. And so what you see here is a criteria that is used, in this case K4, to identify students in need of support. The highlighted data points are data points we use to identify students for summer school. So we look at their DIBELS, we look at their DIBELS score, which is a reading diagnostic or screener. We look at the IXL diagnostic in these grades and students' performance on, of course, AASA, as well as quarterly benchmarks. For middle school, it's very similar, except they use iReady as their diagnostic, but same data points. and then there's little.
And then just to kind of emphasize this, one of the things that Ms. Aranda and I wanted to make sure is that we really had a tool for us to guide us as we move into the future. One of the things that's important for us is that we can give people information about what it is that we're looking for in summer school criteria, and in coupling this with the MTSS identification criteria, so people in that the coordinators have developed this have provided us an opportunity to look at it. So we're using this as a way to get us to 2025 and 26 and beyond to really help us. So if we look here at the in high school, I've highlighted two areas for you to focus in on. In this case, we're really looking at the credit deficient students. And as you know, that has been something that I've been working on the last year and a half with the Credit Recovery Expansion Project to ensure that we're getting those students up to grade level, up to credit level, and then making sure they're on track for graduation. So we're continuing to follow that theme from our traditional year into our summer school. And then again, another piece of that criteria is looking at the ELA and math. And I do want to ensure you as board members that we do have enrichment opportunities through advanced learning experiences. So they have worked with us to identify some enrichment, so it's not just focused on, the credit deficient. But this is a big piece for us as we move forward, so it helps us really identify those students for summer school.
All right, so our enrollment is a little different in K-7 and high school. At K-7, we are going to be doing registration by invitation. So we will send an invitation to identified students. The coordinators will use the list that our assessment and evaluation department has provided them. So they gathered all those data points together and identified the most needy students. They'll use that list to identify the students. We are asking them not to combine grade levels of more than 2 grades in one class and to fill their classes. I told them to take an airline approach and actually overbook a little bit because we know that summer school sometimes skids don't show. So we don't want any empty seats. So they will be filling their classes based on student responses about enrolling.
And as we continue into high school, we will use the Synergy online enrollment, which is known to most people as Parent View. We're working with our Synergy team to refine that and to make sure that it is campus specific. As I mentioned earlier, identifying some of the advanced learning experiences that happen on some of our campuses. So we're making sure that we have identified that with our parents. Also working with TUSD Communications in order to get that information on our website and where we need to go. As mentioned earlier, the coordinator will use the MTSX selection process. And this is what's key for us to make sure that we have those counselors at the beginning to help do that prep work, because sometimes it can be tedious. With all due respect, some of these coordinators, they don't do counseling work, and we have to rely on some of our counselors to help us through that process, especially in high school, to ensure that they're on track for graduation. The other piece that I have been able to kind of weave together is that under the desegregation order, we have an activity called Dropout Prevention and Graduation Plan, better to known to us on this side as the DPG. And one of the things that we do in the DPG is making sure that we identify these central departments who are supporting students for graduation. So I have been able to track the frequency. I have been able to track their specific support for graduation. So again, as I meet with the DPG committee, they are informed of these opportunities that we have for summer school, so they'll be able to couple their energy, their focus on supporting these. One example is I think of language acquisition with Jean Andrea. She does a phenomenal job at making sure that we align the appropriate teacher support at those high schools that need it, like Catalina, Rincon, and Choya in those areas. So that DPG is a big piece for us in high school to guide it in what we need to do. And then just a reminder, we've explained to everyone that we are continuing to do the response intervention credit recovery and in credit acceleration. Also, the reminder is that grade replacement must be in person and an appropriately certified teacher. This is an area that I continue to refine and focus to ensure that we have those opportunities for our students during the summer.
I'm just going to add on to what Mr. Armenta said. What we are providing with this last round of ESSER funding is really a baseline for all our sites, all our students. And there will be additional support. With language acquisition, we'll be providing additional support at different sites, as well as advanced learning, as well as many principals have already contacted me and said, I'm going to put in some of my Title I funding so that I can add classes. So this is sort of a baseline that will be enriched at different campuses with different programs and funding. So we are providing centralized services. Food service will be providing breakfast and lunch at every site. Health services is providing coverage at all sites. They have a plan where there's on-call services at some sites, physical person at other sites, but they have a really efficient service for health services. They also look at the students that are attending and what their health needs are. They really customize the support. Transportation will be provided to K-7 students that are eligible with the same eligibility rules as during the school year. High school will continue to use free public transportation, and transportation will also be providing specialized services for some of our exceptional education students. School safety is providing coverage at all crossings that are necessary. Well, all right. We went over the timeline. Any questions we can answer tonight?
Okay. Board members, questions? Ms. Ekstrom.
What is the projected amount of students that will attend summer school in K-7 and then high school?
So K-7, it'll be somewhere above 6,000 students.
And you know that because this has been done before? Yeah. Okay.
Well, in my case, I allocated. So I allocated a certain number of teachers and students for each site. So that's based on that calculation.
Thank you, Board Member Ekstrom. And just to give you an idea, yeah, so last year we had a little over 10,000 students that enrolled in summer school. And as Mr. Ronda identified, some of them happened to be down 6,000, 7,000. So we're at the high school already, we're about 4,000 students across. So that's kind of where we get our numbers from. We're hoping that that's the same kind of response that we get again. And if we get that response, we will make sure that we pivot with the appropriate FTEs for our sites.
But last year it was all students. So do you know how many last year, how many of those students that were behind or those who just went because summer school was free for everyone?
Yeah, so it was open to everyone last year. So we had a real mix of students, whereas this year we're really targeting. And I think, Frank, it was close to 10,000 just at K-7 plus thousands in high school. So yeah. Yeah.
So then you don't have the numbers of who needed extra schooling for summer as opposed to those who just went because it was free summer schooling.
Dr. Trujillo?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that's correct. This is the first time we're doing the targeted intervention approach, which when you look at what our school improvement goals are, it's all about additional instructional time for students that are struggling to be on grade level, particularly in English, language arts, and math. This is the first time we've gone wholesale all in with the summer session because as you spoke, a governing board member, actually, you're correct. Last year it was just all comers. And there wasn't a lot of data because it was just open to everybody. And your metrics were course completion, and then, of course, they were credit recovery. And then this year, we're really looking at the credit recovery and students that are behind. And then we have our targeted subgroups of students for performance that we need them to get this boost in advance of testing season next year. Now, the good news is the State Board of Education did vote this week to essentially keep the same letter grade formula in play for 23-24, which predominantly favors growth versus proficiency in passing the test. So we have that formula for at least another year, and this will help us in that vein.
So then principals are really talking to parents of those kids that need the extra help, and all of that promotion's being done on the principal level?
Coordinator as well. And tonight when we discuss this, we'll do a first round of sending flyers and letters home as well as an email and communication that way. and then just raise the level of recruitment to where the coordinator will call, the principal, the classroom teacher who has the best relationship with the parent will also recruit, the students that have been identified.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. So before ESSER funding was available, this was funded by usually Title I or other kinds of funding sources. What were we using to fund this in the past?
So mostly 21st Century, which is a grant for before and after school programs, which we still have, as well as title funds.
Yeah, it's going to be tougher in a post or the title budget that we're going to have for next year, because this is for the summer program is part of the 24 school year, right? So next, what we're doing right now.
Correct, and you're right on, Dr. Shaw. I think we're headed for some rough waters because in order to bring back the former funding source of title, it means a larger district set aside of the title grant, which brings us back to smaller school level budgets. We didn't do that this year. For obvious reasons, we wanted to minimize the impact on school level budgets. But going forward, yes, that's going to be a struggle in terms of locating an additional funding source outside of title.
And so my follow-up question then is, I know you mentioned kind of data collection, and we haven't had a lot of data collection in the previous summer schools. So if this is going to come back to us in the fall in terms of making plans and budgeting things for the 25 summer school, this might be a Dr. Freitas question who's not here, but what kinds of data are we going to be collecting this summer? How we're going to collect it, and how we're going to make some decisions. We need to decide now how we're collecting that data so that we can make some informed decisions this fall about the utilization of this for the future summers.
Yeah, that's correct. This will come back upon completion of this summer school session with a pretty fairly comprehensive performance analysis on to what extent did participation in this targeted intervention model, to what extent did it influence academic outcomes as measured by our state assessments? And we're going to have to look at that by subgroup to see the percentages in which they grew in order for the board to make a determination of whether or not it's going to be something that's going to be worth having a large-scale funding conversation about. So this gives us a great opportunity now that we've got sort of a one-year plan to be able to get it funded outside of title before we're asking the board for any larger scale investments.
And Dr. Freitas is listening here. I would really love to see the data coming in with, I know there's a lot of other confounding variables, but the students that are targeted to enroll, those who do enroll and those who don't enroll, and finding some differences. And I know there's other variables that relate to why they enroll or not, but that would be some good control experiment studies in terms of, is this worth funding down the road? Are we making an impact?
Yeah, and I will say to my team, and I think the big challenge is going to be here, we all work with young people. We're parents, a lot of us are parents as well. We know that asking young people to do something that they don't like to do when they're not already good at it and they're already struggling, like reading and doing your math, and then asking them to come in and do that in the summer, it's going to be a big challenge. So it's going to have to be constant communication, as Governing Board Member Ekstrom said, when we're dealing with young people that aren't all that confident right now in their ability to read and do math and might be a little resistant. We're going to have to get parents on board. We're going to have to be very, very frequent and often with our messaging and calling home. So the coordinators are going to have a really big job because this is very different than the come one, come all. The come one, come all, you always get those students that want to move ahead. You get those students that really, truly enjoy the summer school experience. And this one, we're going to have some students that don't necessarily feel the best that they want to be feeling, that they can feel about school right now. So we're going to have to put a lot into communication and motivation.
Yeah, and that was why also it's important to us that we continue with that really engaging STEAM, program and fine arts, because we know that that contributes to their academic success as well, but also as a motivator, right, to go deal with the cool robots and stuff. I will say, data-wise, and I thank you for bringing that up, because we have had some targeted intervention programs in the summer, such as Move On When Reading, for our students that didn't pass AASA in reading in third grade, and in order to move on to fourth grade, they had to come to summer school, and the data was pretty incredible. And we do have some really solid data and progress monitoring for that program. So we have some models already in place that we can use to show.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. So, yeah, gosh, I was thinking that our summer school this year would be for all students, and it's too bad, but I understand the funding is not there. I do want to ask, though, I think it's really important to have it at least be available for kindergarten students, on incoming sixth graders and freshmen, because I think, it helps those students kind of get acclimated to the environment. And especially for kindergarten, it can capture new families into our district. And so I wonder if the board would consider at least doing that. But I know this is, strictly for those students who are identified. But if those students who are identified opt out of taking summer school, I wonder if we can't do some sort of a wait list thing for schools who, want their students to go to summer school. And I'm looking at the numbers for how much it was from 2021 through 23, and it seems to be only 2.3 million more to offer it to all students. So I don't know if we could find the funding source to just make it available, because I know it's a great resource for our students to keep learning throughout that time period. But I don't know what the board thinks about that. Is there any interest in that, colleagues of the board?
Well, go ahead, Mr. Armenta.
Thank you for your comment, Governing Board Shaw. I do want to assure you that when we look at the high school area, we are going to make sure that it's available to there. Also, as we've identified in this conversation right now, where we're going is we really like to have a place to start. And I think when we think of the MTSS, it's a great place for us to start. And then also looking at those other additional funding sources as we identified, whether it's title, whether it's the DPG, being able to bring those now and have that discussion with those individuals to really think about what the future is. But I can say confidently that we'll make sure that whatever student can get there, we'll try to get them in there with the teacher for summer to have some sort of enrichment, or whether it's response to intervention.
I'll just make one comment about the transition. We did ask our middle schools to provide that incoming fifth grader to sixth grader transition. We know that that's a really difficult transition, as well as freshman academy at all. We did not require kindergarten roundup. Not roundup, jumpstart. We haven't the last few years as well, but I know of some schools that are offering it.
Okay, so it's basically like a site by site.
Yeah.
If they'll offer it to all students who are coming in. Okay. All right. Well, so as far as the enrollment goes, I know we're just targeting certain families, but for those, I'm sure people are going to ask about it. Are you going to maybe just send out a link and say it's not guaranteed you'll be on a wait list if they're not a targeted family?
I hadn't thought about a wait list. We did over-identify for them, so we talked about them going in waves. First wave is your most needy students. Grab as many of them as you can, but if you have some no's from those family, then go on to your second wave of students. I hadn't thought of a waiting list, but I'm open to consider that.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more comment.
Sure.
Unless there's another. I see on slide 4 that, we moved to celebrate Juneteenth last year, and we did it on a day that wasn't Juneteenth. This year it lands on a Wednesday, and I would really I would appreciate it if we can honor the Juneteenth holiday as it was meant to be honored on June 19th, on the day that it actually happens. You know what I mean? Like June 21st, there's no school, so it's like, what's the point? It's, yeah, some people get it off, but the majority don't get it off. So I don't know if we can change that holiday to fall on the correct day.
And again, thank you, Board Member Shaw, for your comment. I'll double check on that date to make sure we're at the correct date. But we hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Mato, and then I'll go.
Just a quick question on the enrollment guidance when you mentioned, and again, I don't know what this term means when it talks about in the high school, grade replacement must be in person with appropriate certified teacher. What is grade replacement?
Dr.
Board Member Romero. So we wanted to draw a distinction between credit recovery. You failed a class, you're down a credit, and you need to go in and make it up because we want you walking across that stage. You know, we want you to progress towards graduation. And grade replacement. So grade replacement is a different concept. I don't like my biology grade. I got a B. I want an A. What we wanted to do was to shut off an avenue for potentially a student taking an easier route to get a higher grade in terms of being able to do it virtually. We want grade replacement done in person, in the classroom, not able to do it virtual. So we just wanted to be very clear that grade replacement, you need to do the time, you need to interact with the teacher, be there, show up in person for that higher grade.
Awesome. And then one more thing on the RTI credit recovery programs. Now, when students take those, and they look like it's only a 2-week program, is that correct? Okay. Do they just get like a pass-fail grade, or do they get a letter grade on that?
They'll get a letter grade on that, and they are going into the credit recovery lab on the campus and ensuring that they're taking the end of course exam in that 2-week period. And some students may do a little acceleration, so they may do a second credit, but we reserve that for the site of for the site principal, counselor, and for them to work that out. But yes.
Now, just out of curiosity, because it's only a 2-week, and I'm just trying to figure out the fairness of a student who went through all the classes during the year and they get an A. A student comes to an RTI credit recovery, and in 2 weeks they can also potentially get an A. You know, is that a part of our policy? Is that a part of, I guess, how the credit recovery works? I just feel we have a student goes to school during the school year, doesn't have to go to summer school, but someone can earn the same grade in 2 weeks by doing a crash course during summer school. So I just didn't know if that was a policy that we have, or is that?
Yeah, so go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, so really when you look at it, it's time, right? So it is 2 weeks, but it's like 6-hour shots, right? So you're basically doing all of the hours that you would do in the traditional environment. That's your day for the whole session. So if you stretch the time out into 50-minute periods, it roughly equates to what a student would be expected to do over an 18-week course of time. It is hyper-concentrated. They, of course, have to absorb a lot of information in long days over that sort of short 2-week period. And then secondly, these are students that weren't successful the first time around. For whatever reason, the in-person format didn't work for them. They didn't respond to the original format in which the material was offered. This offers an alternative opportunity to get exposed to the same format with the assistance, of course, of a teacher that's there helping them engage with the content.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. 2 things. First of all, the curriculum. So now that for K-7, we're going to really work on identify students. One thing that wasn't part of the presentation is what the curriculum was going to be. Is there any difference compared to prior years, since the students will be more identified as struggling, and what are we going to do to engage the students as well as address some of the learning issues that they're having?
Right. So in the past, we really focused on here are some common standards that most of our students struggle with at a particular grade level. So in 4th grade, they might, really struggle with operations of fractions or something like that. And so that would be more of it would be the same content for all students, right? Whereas this will be very targeted on the student's diagnostic and then targeting individually what the students need and working with small groups based on the diagnostic results. And those results would most likely be like our pre and post assessment.
So there'll be more targeted going into this, more targeted assessments. So the teacher will know if they have 15 students or 18 students, they'll know where the deficits are for each of their students on math and reading and other things, and they'll be able to target some instruction and differentiate it based on that.
Specifically on those skills that are identified in the diagnostic.
Okay. My second question, I'm feeding off of Ms. Shaw's thing. So I'm looking at the schedule here. I understand what we did last year with Juneteenth is the issue was it was getting close to the start of summer school. The high school sessions were already set, and they weren't, high school, summer school wasn't on Fridays last year, right? And that's why we chose the Friday date for Juneteenth last year, because we had to have a certain amount of days for the high schoolers to recover their credits and do everything. And what I see in the schedule now is that the first session is 10 days, a Wednesday, May 29th to Tuesday, June 11th. And the second session is 11 days, Wednesday to Wednesday, June 12th to June 26th, building in that holiday of Juneteenth. So if it's already built into the schedule with the 11 days, then moving it to the actual date of Juneteenth would probably be appropriate for this summer.
Yeah, so to move it to June 19th would mean a non-instructional day because that is an actively planned summer school day. So the extent to which that would create an additional day on the other end of the calendar, I will ask the team, what the ramification would be.
What is
Again, I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I can't make I can't make that decision. But what I can tell you is we're still at the earlier stage, is that we can make some adjustments.
I would ask the team, what does it look like if we designate a non-instructional day, no summer school classes on that day of June 19th, and then there's a spillover to the 27th. Obviously, I would assume we would have to add a day, and then now we're
Dr.
going to the
Trio.
27th.
Looking at the calendar, so the first session is Wednesday to Tuesday.
Correct.
The second session is Wednesday to Wednesday. The 26th is a Wednesday. So the extra day is already built in because it goes Monday through Friday.
But it's an instructional day. So there are classes meeting on the 19th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
okay.
you're correct.
So to declare the 19th as a Juneteenth day, that has to be a non-instructional day.
That's correct.
And we would have to add it. We'd have to make that day up, correct?
No, because there's already 11 days in that second
Right,
session
so-
and 10 days in the first session. So it's already incorporated with the Friday.
You're saying there's an additional
Yes.
day
Yeah.
added into the second
Because
session?
Friday
We
would
could
have been
just-
an instructional day anyway because it's Monday through Friday instead of Monday
Okay.
through Thursday next summer.
Okay.
And so Friday is already an instructional day. So we had moved it to Friday because last year Friday was not an instructional day,
Correct.
including for
That's
high
right.
school. And this year that's not the case. It's Monday through Friday.
'Cause we
So
are
it
going on
doesn't-
Friday.
The day of the week doesn't matter. So actually putting on the date would be probably more
Okay.
appropriate this summer.
Yeah, I think we could make
Yeah.
that change.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. I will take a look at that. I'll make sure I make those adjustments. I think we can make those adjustments to that. And again, I was just being cognizant of the fact that we needed to observe that day, but I will make sure we address it and then bring it back to you.
It will affect elementary, which is fine, I think. It'll take one day out of elementary, go from
Right.
16 days of summer school to 15.
Right.
I had a question, if that's okay. Oh, unless Ms. Shaw, did you have something? Okay. So to actually piggyback Ms. Shaw, what she said earlier about kindergarten. So I just want to make sure, because, we go into these kindergarten classrooms and you can see that some of the students, they're so cute, but, you can tell that some of them do, struggle and haven't had the opportunities perhaps some of their classmates had. So I just want to, I'm glad to hear that, it'll be a case-by-case basis, because I think that's really important to start off their career here in TUSD. So I just wanted to make that comment. But I did have a question concerning the high school students. So I understand credit deficiency, but the failing grade in ELA and or math, if a student decides so Mr. Armenta, you're calling student X and their parent and
Sure.
we want you to come, and they don't come, what's the ramification when they start school in the fall?
Again, as I stated when we talked about this, we really want to start looking at some sort of criteria So again, identifying this through the MTSS. So as we go, we're going to make some refinements, right? One of the things that we've done already with credit recovery expansion is to make sure we already identified those students with the credit deficiencies. We've provided that information now to the counselors and the principals to make sure that they are registering those students in there. Whether it's now for registration for the fall, or if it's for summer school, or if it's to join them right now to the credit recovery expansion project. So this is on an ongoing dialogue with those students. Again, if we have to make those conversations with those parents in person, then we will make that. But we want to keep it as a consistent mantra with them that we do have the support, we do have these services for you. And so if we can identify whether it's credit deficiencies or whether it's the failure in ELA and math, we want to make sure we do that. At the end of the day, when we deal with some of our high school students, that they're going to opt out not to do it. But as they get down the, and I'll give you another example. We talk about severe credit deficient students. We're in the process of making contact with those students as well, bringing it to their attention that, you know what, you're far behind in your credits. So we want to make sure that you know what all of our alternative pathways to student success programs are, so we can get you there. So they're not going to hide from me. They're not going to hide from our people. We're going to continue to keep looking for them and to provide them the option. So again, providing it now to them as we build into the summer. So we will make sure that if it is an ELA and it's a math, I want that to be the priority. And also just to know that in summer school, some of our principals will have an in-person ELA in math. So that way they have the person in there. They won't necessarily jump on credit recovery.
Okay. And then just a final question from me, and this may be more Dr. Trujillo. Has the district in the past ever charged a fee for summer school?
Since I've been here, summer school's always been free. It's always traditionally been funded out of Title or 21st, and then ESSER took over. So that would be new territory.
Okay. Not that I'm in favor of it, I'm just out of curiosity. Thank you. Okay. Board members, any other questions? All right, Ms. Aranda, Mr. Armenta, thank you so much. I really appreciate your presentation. Okay, we are on to 8.3, TUSD Instructional Framework Pilot Program. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, in October, we were pleased to share with you our vision for a comprehensive instructional framework across the district. The vision for curricular alignment. We know that the #1 strategy for school improvement is a guaranteed and viable curriculum tied to the standards for which students are going to be assessed, delivered with research-based best practices in instructional pedagogy, teaching strategies that are the most effective inside the classroom, assessments that are frequent and common across grade levels in courses, all with instruction that is highly engaging. Well, now we're going to put that together in a pilot. We're going to talk about what it looks like now for schools to go all in. The first step, of course, in a comprehensive implementation of a system the size of TUSD is always to start with a pilot. So I want to welcome Dr. Flory Hewitt. She is our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. Just a brief refresh, a 30,000-foot overview on the instructional framework, and then mainly diving right into the pilot in terms of what we're working on with our 6 schools. Dr. Hewitt?
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, Governing Board members, President Luna Shaw, Legal Counsel, and staff. I'm very happy to share with you today an update on the implementation of our instructional framework. So just to anchor us back on why we designed an instructional framework, I really want to focus us on this statement that every student in Tucson Unified School District deserves a high-quality education by design and not by chance. We want to make sure that we equip our teachers all across the district, no matter where they are in our district, to understand and also enact what high-quality instruction looks like for our district. So the reason we designed this instructional framework was to provide specific guidance and direction on what teaching and learning should look like in each of our classrooms across our district. Regardless of where students are enrolled, their learning experiences will be of high quality. So anchoring us on that vision for our instructional framework, that's why we designed it. Our framework, as you may remember, this is a very 30,000-foot view. It's with the TUSD learner at the center. The encompassing components are design, where they design and prepare lessons that are of high quality. We see teachers as facilitators of learning, And then there is the component of assessment, which happens in the classroom throughout the day. Teachers are formatively assessing students in terms of they're checking in, making sure that that learning is happening. And the last piece, of course, is reflecting on the teaching that's happening, but also on students have the opportunity to reflect on their learning. So that's the anchor of our instructional framework. Last fall, I talked a little bit about the different sections, and of course, you have an attachment in board docs that explains all of the components of the instructional framework, which have an overview. We also describe what are the learner culture and the descriptors. What do we imagine as the learner profile for a TUSD learner? And that's really focused on making sure that we have students that are critical thinkers, that are emotionally intelligent, and that they are academically prepared. So those are the different components of the instructional framework. Again, you have that as an attachment in board docs. So I'm not going to go through all of these pieces because I presented it in the fall, but I just wanted to go through that again. Now, one of the aspects that we are really excited about is this idea of a template, a lesson plan template. This template aligns with the instructional framework. It's a guiding document for our teachers to really dig into what are the academic standards, how do you design learning targets and success criteria in the delivery of a lesson. Again, it's a guiding document right now that we are rolling out very slowly, just given that this is a huge shift as far as how you design your lessons and how you deliver those lessons with an intentional plan. So lastly, in the last portion of our instructional framework, there's an exemplar instructional delivery model. This is highly based on research from Dr. John Hattie, who has actually, he has investigated over, it's a huge meta-analysis that he has conducted over the past, I want to say 20 years, where he has identified what are the most impactful influences that impact student achievement. And the research behind our instructional framework is based on the work of Dr. John Hattie. And largely, what we are implementing in our district is based on teacher clarity. Teacher clarity is how we enact our instructional framework. Much of the training that's happening across our school sites right now are on this idea of really making sure that we're clear about learning expectations, that students know what they're learning, how they're learning it, why they're learning it. And teacher clarity, which is the research behind our instructional framework, really helps enact that. And the last piece you see here is a guidance on what an exemplar instructional delivery model might look like. But I'm going to dig into the fun stuff. We have our SharePoint site that is available for all of our teachers. It has the instructional framework, it has the lesson plan template, and then it has a website just recently created for our pilot schools. So where we are right now in terms of implementing the framework. So we have provided intentional district-wide training on teacher clarity in alignment with our instructional framework. We have had over 1,000 teachers district-wide trained on teacher clarity. We have conducted district walkthrough, we developed a district walkthrough form that is in alignment with our instructional framework, and we are conducting our walkthroughs following that walkthrough form. We have also come to the point where we're aligning our common language across our district, really identifying what is it that we stand for as a district and our vision for teaching and learning. Now let's talk a little bit about the framework pilot update. Last fall, I shared the framework with you all, and then I said we were going to start a pilot with this framework. We have a vision for the pilot and also have selected some schools. We're in the midst of this work. So the vision for the pilot was for us, the curriculum and instruction team, to be a resource for our school sites and site teams to build knowledge and skills on the instructional framework by developing leaders within our school sites. We really believe that it is highly important that we build schools' capacity so they can take this framework to help implement it and roll it out across the district. Our overarching goals for our school sites is for teachers to design and prepare lessons that establish very clear learning expectations by unpacking grade level standards. And what this means is that teachers analyze the grade level standards at a deep level so then they can identify what are those learning intentions that they really want to make sure students are learning throughout the lessons. Why? Because every student in TUSD deserves a high quality learning experience that embraces excellence with intentionality. When teachers design and prepare lessons with well-developed learning targets and success criteria, students are clear about the purpose of their learning. We think that's very important. Similarly, as if you think about when there's a building that's going to be built, there has to be a design behind it. And that's the idea of creating lessons that are well designed with good intentions. The schools that have been selected for the pilot are Bloom Elementary, White, Sewell, Robbins K-8, Doolin Middle, and Pueblo High School. They were selected to, depending on the readiness for the implementation of the framework. So we were looking to see that schools had an instructional leadership team at their sites. So they, for example, all of our schools ideally would have an instructional leadership team that includes the CSP, the principal, and other teacher leaders within the school. So that would be their instructional team. So we were looking at that readiness. Also, how many teachers have been trained on teacher clarity, and these were the selected schools. We did send out a survey early I think it was in December, and we received about 20 schools that were interested, but because of our team's capacity, we were able to select 6 of those schools. The question for the pilot is, how does the combination of coaching, support, and implementation of the TUSD instructional framework impact teacher self-efficacy in their instructional practices? What we hypothesize is that if teachers receive coaching support alongside the implementation of our framework, their self-efficacy will increase, and that will contribute to enhanced teaching effectiveness. Our coaching cycle, I will just go briefly on this, but it's essentially we begin by exploring new learning with our site level teams, and then teachers try it in the classrooms. We provide the coaching, teachers and coaches analyze the classroom practice, and then number 4, teachers implement the next step identified during the coaching, and the leaders collect the evidence of instructional adjustments and of student learning. So it is really a cycle. First, we begin with the planning, then we observe whether or not that training that we've provided and PD is actually being enacted in classrooms. Then we have additional conversations with our teachers and make sure we're following up and monitoring that implementation. Our pilot timeline. So we began our information session with principals in January. Then we had our preliminary site visits. We wanted to make sure we had some ground level based data to ensure that these, what were we working with, right? Then we had our initial training at sites on February 14th. During February 26th through March 1st, and we're still in this phase, we're unpacking standards in PLCs. And this is really powerful because not only are we providing school level training with the whole staff, we're also getting in at the PLC, which is the professional learning community at the school site. So we're meeting with grade level team teachers and really digging into the training and unpacking standards alongside with them. We're going to continue with our professional learning Wednesday next week, for example, or they had the option of selecting March 6th or the 27th to focus on the learning targets and success criteria. And after we come back from spring break, we're going to focus on continued work on learning targets. And this is just the names of the trainings that we're going to be conducting with our staff and our teachers. In April, we plan to gather more final survey data and lessons learned, really have a period of reflection for us, and then have a final site visit and report at some point in May. I hope to come back to you with some of the data that we obtained from this pilot. Of course, with any pilot as well as with any initiative, there are pros and challenges. We have some of our pros is that we really want to make sure that we have consistent language and messaging across our school and our district. We have common goals. There's equity of practices, enhanced practices in our classrooms. There's extra time to practice and implement and provide teacher voice. Those were some of the pros that our teams have identified. Some of the challenges, it's a quick turnaround. It could be uncertain as well as what's going to happen. We might have to make lots of adjustments. We're learning as we go through this pilot. Scheduling challenges, you wouldn't believe. That has been, especially at Pueblo, that's a big school. So we've had some challenges with that. And then follow through and support. We really want to make sure that our sites feel supported, but also that they're championing this effort as well. As far as the roles and responsibilities, we've spoken with our site level teams, with our principals, with our CSPs. What is the expectation of their roles and what is the expectation of the teachers? So for principals, for example, we really want them to be a project champion. They will help us lead and advocate this effort, set the tone and expectations at the school site, be involved in the work, be an open communicator, be open to feedback, and implement with fidelity, because that's how we get to that high quality level of instruction. Our CSP, they are a pivotal person in our schools. They provide the professional development. They provide the instructional coaching. They're also project champions. Be involved in the work. They attend the professional learning sessions. They help design and provide differentiated support along with the site leadership team. Again, we're there to provide support and to build their capacity so that when CNI is not in the school anymore, they can take it on their own for the upcoming year with additional supports and PD from our team. Our teachers, be involved in the work, design and prepare in collaboration with a district team and the site team, and also providing feedback. We need that feedback as well to see what are areas that we can improve on, what are areas that went well, and also be an open communicator. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that so we can be clear on the roles and responsibilities. The other component of this is our instructional framework is very extensive. It's extensive in the sense that it's very detailed in some of the aspects that we want to focus on. For this particular pilot, we are just taking one bite of that instructional framework. And the bite is that establishing learning expectations. That is the most critical point because that's the design phase where teachers design and prepare lessons that are very clear. So our walkthrough form just focuses on that piece of the instructional framework. This is where we're focusing our training. Our logistics. So as of this point, every school has been assigned a coaching team and a training and coaching team. Our coaching teams are providing training. We're supporting site level teams, grade level teams during professional learning communities, and we are monitoring the implementation of that learning. Our coaching teams work alongside the school's instructional leadership teams to build, again, that capacity for sustained practices. So our process is really intended to be a collaborative process with our sites. We have met with every site already to map out our training at PLCs. We have done walkthroughs. The teams have met with individual site grade level teams to train. Right now we're on the unpacking standards stage, and then starting tomorrow we're going to do the next phase of the training. And our goal is to continue to build site capacity for improved instruction practice. This is just an example of how we have structured our process for PLCs. Again, it's very structured. We're providing that guidance and support at our school sites that we're piloting. We also developed a website. So what we really want to gain from this as well is that schools are able to cross-collaborate with each other. So for example, teachers that develop lessons from Bloom, they can also look at lessons that maybe Robbins developed, and they can interchange those resources because teachers, we work very well when it's a collaborative process. So we have a school website that's up and running where we hope to have resources and lessons here as well as teachers dig into that PLC collaboration. With that, I will open it up for questions. I know it was a lot.
Oh, you're fine. I had to turn my mic on. Thank you, Ms. Hewitt. Board members, any questions? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation as well. So I saw on like the timeline slide that there was surveys that were going to be conducted, I think, in April. Are those surveys anonymous? And like, if not, I think it would maybe be a good idea to do anonymous surveys, maybe like close to now and then also at the end of the pilot.
Absolutely. And actually, that's a great question you asked. We did do a pre-survey, and it was anonymous. We received, and this is just from memory, about 150 responses. And if you'd like to, I can share those responses. And we hope to do a post-survey because what we really want to have teachers reflect on is, what are your feelings right now about this instructional framework? What are your feelings about teacher clarity? And we want to change that perception if it's in any way negative. We did receive some responses that were like, well, this is a mandate and I may not be so into it right now, but we are seeing some changes just with the surveys that we're doing throughout the training. So it's interesting to see, so I'm happy to share that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And I did bring an example of the Teacher Clarity Playbook, which is the training that many of our schools are getting, and which is the training that helps enact our instructional framework. So if you want to take a look at that, I'm happy to bring that.
Thank you. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. And thank you for the presentation, Ms. Hewitt. Can we go to slide 19, please? That's the question hypothesis slide. And so I have some questions about some terminology. I think this is really key in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with this. So impact teacher self-efficacy. What does that mean exactly in their instructional process and practices?
That's a great question. What we're talking about here is their perception of how well I conduct the lesson. It's their self-efficacy, how efficient I am in delivering this lesson or in delivering instruction. So how does the combination of our coaching support with the instructional framework help change that perception? As I stated, even with the pre-surveys, there are some hesitance about implementing teacher clarity, or this might be too much. So we want to enhance that perception, and we want to change that with that coaching support, very structured coaching support. And that's the idea, that how does that coaching support change your perception of your self-efficacy to be able to deliver a lesson that is aligned with teacher clarity or success criteria, and having all these things with the instructional framework. Does that make sense?
Right, so the goal is to improve their self-perception or their perception of how their effectiveness is as teachers. And then the hypothesis is that will lead to better teaching.
Exactly.
If they're more confident, or you're trying to build confidence is what it seems like
more
you're trying to do.
confidence in our instructional framework and the teacher clarity, correct.
And in the measurement and the data you're collecting is just on the teacher surveys then, and looking at their self-identified perceptions?
It's going to be qualitative mostly, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some like surveys and
and observations. Yeah. It'll be interesting to gather. We are getting feedback as well from our teachers. So we conduct the training, and then we have a feedback form that allows for additional comments on what their perceptions are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Following up on Dr. Shaw's line of questioning, so I guess the data collected is about the teacher's self-perception, but are we also comparing the students' academic achievements from the pilot to before the pilot was happening, just to see if
Right. That's a really good question. I don't think it would be fair to measure students' performance because it's so short. We can definitely see what assessments between the second quarter to this quarter, if that changed anything, but because there are several factors that could influence that, we didn't want to get too deep into the student performance data, but rather the teachers at this point. But I think that is a valid point, and I think that's something that once we roll this out entirely with all of its facets, I think that's something that we definitely need to take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Romero.
Just on the high school level, does this program take in consideration tardiness with our high school students?
No, not at this point. It does not. We're looking again at that teacher practice, how they're collaborating, and how our coaching supports. I know, I wish it would.
Okay.
All right. And I have just a quick question. So the selected schools, obviously very strategically chosen, but has this been, or will it be positively, has it been positive? That's my question.
Yes, it has. It has. In fact, our principals have given us really great feedback. We were looking at principals that had that readiness as well with teacher clarity. What percentage of your teachers have been trained on it? But it has been overall very positive, and they're excited. I have various schools that are very excited, and I'm happy to share some of the data that we get afterwards, after our training and our pilot goes on.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Yeah. All right, thank you. Board members, anything else? All right, thank you, Ms. Hugh. Oh,
thank
Ms.
you.
Romero.
Oh.
And then, so we will be reviewing this once a year then on this as we work our pilot program. Is that the plan?
Yeah, so the pilot will end in May, and I'm happy to come either in June at some point to show you the data from the pilot with the pre-survey, post-survey data, the perceptions, or whether or not we were able to confirm that hypothesis that we had. And then we can come back, because next year we plan to continue to expand our instructional framework and make sure that it's consistent across our schools. So if you would like me to present every year, I'm happy to.
I guess just kind of give us a grade level of how we're doing and doing what we're wanting to accomplish.
Dr. Trio.
Absolutely. Number one, I want to thank Dr. Hewitt and her team. And really, to put this into governing board level, sort of 30,000 foot perspective, the absolute hardest, most difficult, yet rewarding and important work to do in a school system is instructional leadership. The number one lever to student achievement, it's curricular fidelity. Is every single teacher in the system, are they teaching lessons that are aligned to the state standards? 2, are they using highly effective teaching strategies rooted in research to get the greatest amount of students in the classroom to learn the information the first time? And are they engaging in collaborative structures to make sure that first grade at school A in classroom 1 looks exactly like first grade in classroom 2 and 3, and you don't have 3 different versions of third grade going on, with particularly some teachers may or may not be teaching to the standards. There are some districts where that is a struggle. That is not the case at TUSD because of the hard work of the Curriculum and Instruction Division. With that being said, the second hardest thing to do in a system, in a school system, is, you guessed it, change. Change moves slowly. Teachers are fiercely independent, autonomous, proud. They thrive in conditions where they can collaborate and be autonomous. The last thing you want to do is mandate, blanket style, throw a whole blanket over the district and say, you will do this tomorrow. Which is why we're honoring where schools and teachers are currently in their journeys. We have teachers of all experience levels that are exceptional with highly effective Tier 1 strategies that are best practices for math and reading. We're trying to put them in situations where they can step up and lead at the course level team. When we talk about PLC, that's essentially what a course level team is. A team of first grade teachers, a team of second grade teachers, or in the high school world, a team of algebra teachers, and really engaging around 4 critical questions. What do we want the students to learn? How are we going to teach it as a team? What are we going to do when they don't learn it the first time? And how are we going to assess our students to make sure that they've learned it? And the framework that Dr. Hewitt and her team have worked on really puts together a comprehensive framework that's going to train teachers from start to finish, provide them coaching, provide them time, professional development, so that they can get comfortable, which is why I like to focus on efficacy, because if we're going to go district-wide, it's very important that in a pilot situation, we are providing an implementation that makes teachers feel autonomous, makes them feel supported, makes them feel like the district is a resource, and we're not necessarily throwing a change on them overnight. So just wanted to give a little bit of that context so that there's an appreciation of just how difficult it is to do the instructional leadership. And I think, Dr. Hewitt, you've done a really good job here bringing in John Hattie's research and putting it and packaging it up in a way where it's very accessible and meaningful to our teachers. So we are looking forward to the pilot. I do think this is the heart of our work. So having you back as we expand out, I think, is going to be key.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hewitt. Okay, we are on to 8.4, Spring 2024 Communications Marketing and Enrollment Update.
President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, I'm very excited about this next item. In really working with our communications director, Mrs. Carla Escamilla, I'd like to welcome her here. I've got to say, this is the most aggressive, this is the most interactive, this is the most creative, this is the most assertive recruitment and enrollment initiative I've seen here. This is the first time I've really seen digital media leveraged. Some of the strategies that our smaller and nimbler charter schools have been using on TUSD, now us starting to build that into a comprehensive plan, leveraging streaming video, streaming audio, getting to people on their devices. This is all new stuff. And I'm very excited and proud to see us going on the offensive in terms of going out there and getting students. I will say this is also the first time that we're really looking at the district and our recruitment and our retention and our promotional strategy, not looking at a big amorphous district, but starting to look at 3 types of families in the TUSD universe and speaking distinct messages to each family. Family number 1, you left us. We want to find out why. We want to find out what happened. We want to get to you. We want to see if you'll come back and give us another shot. Family number 2, you live in the TUSD universe. You've never given us a shot. You've gone to privates your whole academic career. You've chosen charter schools. You've never stepped foot on our campus. We want to get in front of you. We want to talk about why we will be the best option for you. And for the first time, taking a look at our currently enrolled families and stopping the assumption that just because a student is, or a family is a first grade family with us right now at school A, that it's just the natural order of things that they're going to come back to us next year as a second grade family. There are probably no less than 5 or 10 schools in that family's ear getting them to try to leave, to make a different decision. So looking at our current clientele and looking at them as active customers that we have to engage and we have to tell them right now why TUSD is continuing to be the best option for them. So putting this all together, Carla and I have had a lot of brainstorming sessions on this new approach. Putting it all together is Mrs. Carla Escamilla, so go ahead and take us through here.
Thank you, and good evening, Board President, Board members, Dr. Trujillo, legal counsel, and staff. I am, like Dr. Trujillo said, I'm also very excited to tell you about this campaign. We are starting this month, and we're ready to roll, and it's just the way that we're going to be promoting all our programs in our schools and TUSD, and we're really excited. So the timeline of the campaign started with Dr. Trujillo and I meeting and figuring out what are those families that we want to reach. Then we requested research from advertising companies around Tucson and that are included in our vendor list to find out what would be the best way to reach these families. We met with those media vendors to determine what do you offer, how can you help us get to these families, how would be the best way to get to them, and partner with us in the best way to tailor this message. We wanted to tailor a message. We wanted to make sure that each one of those group families was getting a message that they want to receive in their home, that they're not gonna feel that they're being targeted, that they're gonna actually feel this is the information that I wanna see, this is the information that I wanted to hear. And then the next question is, how are we going to send that message to our families? How are we going to get there? And that's where all this research started coming along, and it started opening our eyes on how much we didn't know, and then now we do, and then we're putting it into effect to be able to get to these families. And now, this week, actually, we're in production. We are producing a video. We recorded already our students and our staff. We went and found out which voices we wanted to use in our commercials. We wanted staff, and we wanted families, and we wanted children, our own students, and Dr. Trujillo. So we already did part of that. We're finishing up tomorrow with recording Dr. Trujillo. We're going to be filming him and to make him part of this campaign. And then we're going to be able to roll our advertising and digital ads already on process. I have one for you to look at. And we're using the same staff and the same students. And in a few weeks after we start rolling, we're going to be, is it working? Are these families engaging? Are they going to our website? Are they looking for tours? Are they calling the schools and trying to set up those tours? Are they asking questions? Are they calling our enrollment ambassadors? We're going to be looking at our analytics and see if it's working. If it's working, we're going to continue pushing. And if not, we're going to have the opportunities to switch our efforts. And we're working with the vendors that we're working. They are very strategic on giving us those numbers and telling us, this is not working over here. Let's move it over here, or whatever the situation might be. So I feel really confident that we have chosen the right partners for this endeavor. So our target families, as Dr. Trujillo was mentioned, is 3 segments. The families currently enrolled at Tucson Unified Schools, families that have left Tucson Unified School in the last 2 school years, and families that are living within the TUSD boundaries that are not attending our schools. So we go to the messages, the campaign goals. Our main goal is a chain of events, and the main purpose is enrollment and retention. We want to bring those families in, and we want to make sure that we retain the ones that are already in our schools. How are we going to make this happen? We're going to focus on the call to action, and that call to action is going to always be go to TUSD1.org/register, and also to visit all the website of the school so they can find out more about what they like, and especially hit that button where it says schedule a tour, because everybody will love the school once they go and they see it, they meet the teachers, they see the campus, they learn about it in person. It's going to be amazing, and we really want to focus on that. And the final purpose is the awareness. We want to really know that that positive awareness of Tucson Unified, who we are in every single household that we can touch. We want that to be aware of everything that we offer, and we want them to get it everywhere, every way that we can. Okay, so, the one before. Here we go. So the first message is for the families that we want in our future, the families that have never tried Tucson Unified. We want them to discover Tucson Unified. We're focusing, and we're really proud to be a district that has over 150 years of history, tradition, and culture, and we're the heart of the Tucson community. That is our main message. And why are we doing that? Is because a lot of other schools, the majority of them out there, they're not part of Tucson Unified District. They do not have that history, that tradition, and that culture that our families really embrace once they come to Tucson Unified. So we really want to focus on that message. And then the other message for our current families, we want to thank them. We want them to feel appreciated, that thanking them for trusting Tucson Unified with the safety, well-being, the learning journey, the achievements of their students. We want them to know that they're part of our family, that they are part of Tucson Unified along with their families. And I really feel, we all really feel that we all want to feel appreciated in everything we do. So appreciating our families is going to be, it's going to be a really good commercial, and I'm excited for all of you to see it. How are we going to get to these families? Video streaming, audio streaming, digital ads, social media, email blasts, mailers, and some others. And we did some research to find out the media habits of our target audience, and we found out really good information on how to target them. The audience that we have is 58% of our audience are women between the ages of 35 and 44. And how we're going to engage with them is showed that our families by the video streaming all the way to social media. The digital ads are going to be very, very crucial. Why? Because we found out that these families spend 11 hours a week in their computer when they're not working. We're talking about shopping online, we're talking about Googling information, and that doesn't include social media, because our target families spend 2 hours a day on social media. That is huge, and we have a huge opportunity to be able to reach them in those ways. Streaming video. The video ads will increase awareness of Tucson Unified relevant target families utilizing Google and Amazon data. And that's what our vendors are going to be using to target our families. 96% of our audience use streaming video. They watch Hulu, they watch Tubi. You can see all the networks on the screen. And also we have partnered with Telemundo, which is an NBC family. And then we are targeting all their networks as well. And something really interesting about this, you could be watching a show in English, but if you're a Spanish-speaking family and the analytics show that, your commercial is going to come out in Spanish. So we're really excited to be able to hit that in that way. YouTube stream. 50% of our audience use YouTube on a weekly basis, and this is to watch shows, not just to go and find out a quick video. They actually spend over 4 hours a week watching YouTube. So we're also going to be doing that. And the way that we're going to be doing YouTube, you know how the ad comes and then you can skip the ad? Where ours is going to be non-skippable. We're going to have a 15-second, we're going to have a 30-second ad, but our audience is going to have to watch the whole thing. And that's why we're going to have more of the 15-second, because we don't want to be, oh my gosh, there's the other ad again, I have to watch it. So a 15-second ad will be more effective in that way. Audio streaming. 79% of our audience uses some kind of audio streaming app like Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, SoundCloud, and TuneIn. And we're going to be able to target those families as well as they listen to music and podcasts. They also, when they're watching on their phone, the video also comes out. So it's not just what they're listening, but also what they're going to be looking at. All these targeting video, streaming, YouTube, and audio, they're going to be based on location, language, and behavior. Then we have email and mail efforts. We're going to do this to really get to our families that have left Tucson Unified in the last 2 years. We want to, and the message that we're going to be sending on a postcard and on a personalized email that they're going to receive on their computer is we want to hear from you. We want to welcome you back. The action that we want them to do is they're going to go to Tucson Unified website and they're going to be welcomed by their name. So we're going to be able to follow that person by their name all the way over to registration. And if we see that they're not getting there, we're going to have a call back to or an email back to them. But we're also going to give them the option of, do you want to talk to somebody? And that's somebody we already had identified. We're working with placement and enrollment, student placement and enrollment office, and we already identified one enrollment ambassador that's going to be just working on this effort to help us communicate with these families, to talk to them, and to find out what would be the best way to get them to come back to Tucson Unified. And we're going to do that by email and also by regular mail. And this is going to be done at least a couple of times before the summer. In-house, what we're going to keep doing what we're doing. With social media, like we mentioned, 2 hours a day is a lot of money, and we need to take a lot of opportunity, and we need to take it. Facebook and Instagram. We're going to continue posting those positive stories. We're going to continue sharing everything that's happening in our schools. We're going to continue sharing all the programs and the schools, and also the commercials are going to be there. And that's where the commercials are going to be boost advertising. And what's going to happen with this is all our followers already watch our content. So we're going to do the boosting advertising to basically reach those families that are on Facebook that they do not follow us and do not get our postings. So we're going to be able to reach those families. And then a step further, we have partnered with KOLD and KGUN, and we're going to be they're going to be posting our videos as well and boosting. So we're not only going to have the following of KOLD and the following of KGUN, but also there's going to be some paid advertising to even reach further when it comes to social media. Parent link messaging. We're going to be sending messages to our families, our current families, thanking them, sharing the information, sharing the commercials, saying thank you, and also as a reminder that it's registration online going on. Don't forget, if you need to talk to somebody, if you need some questions, we're here to help you. We really want to put that customer service and open the doors to all these families that are currently enrolled at Tucson Unified. And also, on the other hand, the ones that have left, to be able to reach out to them and tell them that we wanted to hear from them. We're going to continue with our newsletter, working with the schools, making sure that we're pushing every single time that we can without being too overbearing, that it's registration season, and then we want them to go and to the website and enroll. And also our website, continue sharing the videos, stories, to register and to discover Tucson Unified. Like I mentioned before, our partners are Cox Media, KOLD 13, KGUN, and in Telemundo, Arizona. All of these are doing geo-targeting specific messaging. We are not doing broadcast. We're not just putting the commercial out there for whoever is going to see it. We're being very, very targeted on who's going to be able to see this commercial and this campaign in digital and in video. This is the ad that we finished yesterday, and the pictures that you see on the screen, on the top is Dale King. He is a school safety officer, and he put on a vest and went over to the transportation department central office, and we took the picture and we recorded video there with him. Underneath is Jenna. Jenna is a teacher at Borton. She's a kindergarten teacher. She is amazing, and she went to kindergarten at Borton. So the love for her to TUSD and her children really, really show off in the commercial that we recorded. And then the kiddos to the right are students from Robbins K-8. We have Brandon, Michaela, Nicole, MJ, Ali, and Ezra. And they were amazing kids. We had another little girl who's in another part of the commercial. Her name is Charlie. And just working with the kids, working with the staff to put in this campaign together has been really a blessing, and it's been really a great opportunity. And the entire team is very excited to show it once we culminate. And in addition, we are working with dual language. We're working with the preschool programs, Innovation Tech High School, and the new K-6 elementaries on their own enrollment marketing campaigns and efforts to help also in those ways. So this concludes. Thank you so much. Any questions, comments?
Thanks. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Escamilla. Okay, any questions? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Great to hear that we are pivoting our marketing strategy. So thank you for all your work in this. And so can we go back a slide to that this ad? So where will this specific ad be?
Well, all these ads are going to be digital ads. So they're going to be coming up on different websites, on Facebook, on all social media. We're going to have different sizes. This is the most expanded one, the one that has all the copy on it. The other ones are going to be more specific on the picture and on the call to action. But you're going to see them everywhere. On website, when, like, for example, if you're out Googling something, it's gonna pop out, right here to the left where all the other ads come. So it's gonna be popping up left and right.
Okay.
And also we're doing some printing.
Right on. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we've thought about doing targeted ads for each specific school, geo-targeted to that specific school boundary, because although I like how this ad's looking, I think, it doesn't give a full perspective about what each of our schools offer. And if we were to kind of be more specific to that area and all the amazing things that are happening, like Tully's free pre-K, for instance, maybe that might grab more attention to those families in those areas.
Definitely, that's something that we can really look into it and put it a plan to do specific targeting for specific schools.
Okay.
That is amazing, yeah.
Thank you. And then also, I know you said that we're gonna basically focus on our district boundary, but I know we're losing students in our district for other districts, and so is there a potential to expand those boundaries? Because we can get students from other locations, right?
Yes, we're also targeting other districts along the Tucson metro area, all the way to the south, all the way to west and southwest.
Okay, yeah, because especially Tuva, I don't know if they have more capacity to accept more students, but for those districts that don't have an online option, I think that would be.
Yes, and we are also doing efforts with Altar Valley Middle School because we're going to be able to have transportation services for high schoolers. Altar Valley does not have a high school option for their students, so we're going to start a campaign where we're going to be able to go and promote specific, and we have a list of specific schools that transportation is going to be taken, and that's on the works right now, so we're also going to be focusing on Altar Valley.
Okay, great.
Okay, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose, and thanks for the presentation, Ms. Escamilla. This is great that we're doing something different and trying to really push this. So yes to everything is on your slides, and I have a quick kind of very Ravi question, and then I'm going to kind of do a lot of repetitive things to what Ms. Shaw said. I wrote down, one of the things I wrote down was exactly what she said. So first question, what's the cost and budget that we have for this marketing plan?
Marketing fits into the existing communications budget. We don't have to come and ask the board for an additional allocation. I think Carla did a really good job of just working within her allotted budget to really leverage those pieces.
Do we know how much we're going to be spending from the already allotted MNO budget for
Yes, $118,000 to finish up on June 30th.
Okay, so this is the next couple of months of all this.
It's 4 months, a 4-month campaign.
And so the thing I wrote down that kind of just repeats what Ms. Shaw said, individual schools. I see these ads on TV sometimes, the TUSD ads. I see them on my social media, Magnet, Avid, Gate, all these, great programs that we have. Mm-hmm. But to me, I know all these programs, so it means I can just imagine as everyone rolling their eyes and this doesn't mean anything. This is too much information. I don't know what it means for me and my family. really just figuring out how we can geolocate and how we can target these individual schools, especially the under-enrolled schools that we have in a district that might have a special program. Do we have capacity at Davis? Everyone in like the west side should know that Davis is a bilingual school and have specific geotagging. Do we have capacity in the east side of the school? Like everyone, like, so just, I don't think we need to be that specific, but just, pick like a couple of the schools that like have special programs that we can market and try to just increase enrollment in those specific schools and almost treat them like when I'm getting, marketing from, some of our charter school competitors in the area, and I see that on my social media feed, is very specific to a specific school. And I think we need to do some very specific school targeting just to families to really increase some there. And before we do that, and before we even get this out, like I have I have websites pulled up of charter schools. Even I pull up Orange Grove Middle School. I know a lot of our students, we lose them to that at middle school. Their websites are so much different than ours. I think we have a good landing page, and this might be a whole nother budget allocation later on. But like, I know our websites are good for me as a parent or me as a school board member trying to figure out who the leader is and what's going on the website. But they are not good for an outside person thinking like I should enroll my kid in Lineweaver or Alice Vale or other schools. I'm on those websites. They're meant for me as a parent, but not meant for me as a potential consumer. And so that's a whole nother project. But I'm on some of these charter school websites. They scroll down. They're all like the leaders' faces right there. Like it's so different than our individual school website. So we're going to be targeting with these ads for individuals who go to our landing page or to register or to a school website. We got to really put some money into this website to make sure that the landing page matches, landing pages on the charter schools. And each individual school needs to have their own kind of very marketable landing page that matches the charter schools in their area, because we're not going to be able to compete if they're picking, they're getting advertisements for different things. And then the final comment I have is like disjointed emails. And I get so many different emails from TUSD, whether it's Family Resource Center, whether it's this program or that program or something else. I get all these emails, and I roll my eyes at them. I usually archive them without reading them, and I admit that as a school board member who's engaged, I don't really read a lot of these emails that come through. I love to see like an every 2 week, I get an email. I read the ones I get from my principals from the two schools my kids are in. I read those from top to bottom, what's going on in my child's school. I love to see, instead of all these disjointed emails, an email coming from the superintendent, build a culture of TUSD. We have a really good communicator as a superintendent. Let's take advantage of that. And a newsletter coming out, every 2 weeks from the superintendent's office. That no individual emails from any department, just the schools, from the principals, from the teachers that my students have, and then one from the superintendent every 2 weeks with what's going on in the district. Build a culture, a little video thing that he's good at doing. All this, all the stuff that comes out from Family Resource Center or from a student services or other things funneled into that email, and I think we'll do a better job of really building that culture of TUSD if we really focus, the strengths that we have and focus all those individual emails that are so disjointed into something that's more coherent.
Taking notes. Thank you so much.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you. So how do you choose the schools that are on our social media? Because these ads are going to be coming up, and a lot of times I see the same schools promoted on our social media. And so, how are those schools chosen? Because each school is different.
Yes.
And I'd like to see more different schools promoted.
Definitely. We follow a map. We make sure that we hit every single school. Sometimes we have schools that do more events than other schools, and then they call us, and that's why sometimes there's more activity in that school and more communication directed from that school. So we end up going to those schools a little bit more because of that issue. But we do follow a map, and we make sure that in the school year we hit every single school, not once but several times. You might see a little bit more of the magnet schools sometimes, just because we have a day dedicated to all the magnet schools, and also we have that order that we need to, maintain that magnet school up high, and they do a lot of events, a lot of performances, and they're very good communicating. So I think we just need, our office just needs to be stronger communication with all the schools to make sure that we get invited to all the events, and then we're able to have our staff to be able to be at those schools. But we definitely assure that in every school year, we hit every single school more than once at least.
Okay, and then as far as sports go, I see the same schools and their sports and that kind of thing. I think, definitely in middle school, that's something that we should be promoting because that's what's going to want to make students come to that school is sports a lot of times. Schools are totally winning, at different events and different things. And I don't see a difference in sports being utilized. So like whether it's tennis or swimming or whatever it is, I just think if we had more variety and that way the public could see this is what each school can, what each school has and promote it that way. And then I was looking at, scheduling the tours. Like that's something that you're really promoting. So is there just going to be one person with your enrollment ambassadors that are going to be calling schools saying, hey, this person wants to come and schedule
The one person that we have identified is for the families that we want to return to TUSD, the ones that we want to talk to, what happened, what can we find a better fit for you. So we have identified that one person for that effort. For all the other efforts, all the enrollment ambassadors are going to be working with the regions to make sure that they're the ones doing the school tours or providing it, or to making sure that the school is communicating with the family, making sure the tour happens.
Okay, so then an enrollment ambassador is giving the tour.
Yes.
Okay, so
but also the school. No, they're the liaison.
Okay.
So they put it together. They also can go and be there with them while the school is doing the tour. But the school does the tour.
Okay.
The ambassador is the one that connects them.
Okay, thank you.
So Ms. Escamilla, well, thank you for the presentation. And as you know, I'm also a communications director, so I'm excited to see this and trying to think of, how's this going to look? And I appreciate all my colleagues' comments. I think they probably all have said what I would have suggested. But my question to you is, so this gets implemented, goes through to June. What kind of, are you going to be having some sort of data to come back to the board of, we hit these benchmarks, we didn't hit these, this is what worked for us? Because, I watch a lot of Hulu, and there's a lot of local ads on Hulu. And they do where I am watching a program in English, and then the commercial will be in Spanish, which I always think is kind of interesting. How did they pick that up? So will you be able to come back and let us know?
Definitely.
What kind of benchmarks?
Yes, I can definitely get you the specific analytics that are going to come from our vendors that are putting us on Hulu, for example, and then also the analytics from our website.
Okay. And the families do, and maybe this is more of a Dr. Trujillo question. Are you also going to be part of this campaign and reaching out to the families? Because I think, if a superintendent calls and wanting to know why they left the district.
I will be, number one, I'll be in a lot of the promotional videos. We really want to rally around the message of Tucson Unified School District, discover Tucson Unified School District, history, tradition, culture, and you. And it just speaks to who we are as a district and what charter schools can't do. Charter schools can't give the legacy of like a Pueblo High School or a Tucson High or a Mansfeld or the amazing programming that we see in any one of our schools around the district. And with this particular segment of the TUSD universe, I argue that it's probably one of the most important, because these are the families that left us for a reason. More often than not, it was a reason that led to some kind of dissatisfaction. Commute time too long on the bus wasn't fixed. The route that their child was taking was too long. They didn't feel that the school was safe. They weren't happy with the school facilities. The AC, the heating, the cooling kept going out. Maybe they were in an unfortunate situation where we couldn't staff a permanent teacher and they had to deal with rolling subs every 10 days. What I challenge my team to think about is, in this fiercely competitive open enrollment environment, it's not the parents that are satisfied and happy with Tucson Unified that run out and become vocal. The compliment that they pay to us is really silence and just coming back to us year after year. But the segment of the TUSD universe that will go out and be vocal and will start to form a perception about our brand and who we are the dissatisfied families and customers. So with this particular group, yes, I do want to be involved. I will add that as an aside, not only do we have this promotional infrastructure where we're reaching out to them, inviting them to connect with an enrollment ambassador, have a candid conversation about what happened, what can we do to earn your trust again, and see if you want to come back into the district. We're also going to be doing some focus groups that I will be directly involved in with families that have left the district for some candid conversations to see what it was that went wrong. So this is a group that we've never really engaged. We've never really, to this extent, really aggressively engaged to try to repair the relationship and to get them to consider maybe coming back to Tucson Unified. So we're excited to see what we can accomplish here. I'll say the ultimate metric is just going to be, for me, it's about one thing: enrollment. We can look at analytics, we can look at clicks, we can look at hits on a website. To me, that doesn't mean anything if the enrollment doesn't come with it. We need the enrollment. The enrollment is going to define the success or failure of this new initiative, this new approach.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Shaw.
Two things. Who is this meant for again? What's the target audience for this?
This one is the Discover. This is the families that have never tried Tucson Unified School District.
Okay. Have you been to that register website? I'm on that website right now. Like, I would never, if I'm a family that's thinking about TUSD, I'm on this website, I click on K for kindergarten. I get this. I get a list of like every single school. It's not going to make a single person enroll in TUSD that's not already enrolled. I wonder if we're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
Like, if we're having all this like $100,000 of advertisements going out and then linking people to websites that are not going to convince anyone to enroll in TUSD, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. And this is on my laptop, on my phone. It's probably like a list, scrolls and scrolls and scrolls of schools without any information. I'm not going to get through, it's 50 schools if I'm trying to think of a place for a kindergarten to go to. So I think we need to really put some energy into the website before we really spend $100,000 on marketing our websites. That's not really ready for
We'll slow the train down.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll stop. Okay. We're going to slow this train down. I'm going to ask for a comprehensive audit. Let's test out all of our links. We want to test out everything that a parent is going to click. And we don't want the experience of a parent clicking into some spreadsheet in terms now that we can do. Okay. That needs to happen. Absolutely. I'm glad you caught that. What I will be honest with you about is the amount of money and funding that's going to be needed to do a complete overhaul of school level web pages. Mm-hmm. They have been in a less than stellar condition for quite some time. That's going to take a significant investment, which I'm happy to make and start looking at some of the vendors that are out there so we can have more engaging landing pages. But right now, these are the bullets that we can fire. And we've got to get off of the mat. We really do. We can't have another season where we're just depending on traditional legacy media. That's not working for us, okay? As a medium, that is a medium in decline. All due respect to the traditional media outlets that cover the district, people are streaming. People are on devices. People get their news at their leisure. And so we have to get to people where they are, where they're getting their content, where they're looking at news and advertisements. And yes, absolutely, before we do anything, we should have a comprehensive testing of every single link, every single email, every single link that takes you into any district website to make sure that it is working. Absolutely. And I will say a ditto on the individual schools. I do think that we've got some really good ideas here on what this could look like if we had, especially our under-enrolled schools, having their own sort of advertising, or you can do even a cluster of 2 or 3 schools in one to hit a particular neighborhood. So I think that's something we could definitely move on.
Definitely on the website, if I may add, we already been looking at different vendors, and so far they cannot, the ones that we've seen, they cannot with the load of having so many websites in one. And that is one of the biggest issues that we've been having to be able to switch to another vendor, is that they're not capable of the amount of data that we would have because of all the individual websites of the schools. So, but we'll continue to work with them and we continue to look, and that's definitely one of the priorities that we have.
Yeah.
Dr. Shaw.
Follow up. I know it'll take a long time. It was not meant for this next school year to really update every single school's website. But I would, if this is going to go out to a lot of people that register, like I'm on my phone now on this website. Like it works, but it doesn't work.
No, we will
Yeah.
look at it tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because we need to overhaul it. This is going to be a landing page for advertisements. It needs to be a proper landing page. My last comment, and it's kind of facetious, but not facetious. Like maybe we need to change every single one of our 88 schools to Academy. That works. I mean, like, why not?
School becomes an A, it graduates into becoming an academy. We throw some recognition around it. Could work.
No? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Okay, anybody else? Ms. Shaw.
Just thank you, Dr. Shaw, for making that point. I think, if the website to register is unclear and difficult, we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. But besides that, I just want to, I would like to see, I know we're, I think, pausing on rolling out these ads, but I would like to have the board be given just an example of each ad that we are planning to roll out before we do. And I heard like a June date as far as when we're going to see if it's working. But I think, if we try it for maybe a month and then see how many clicks that garners, then we could pivot well before the new school year. And I didn't see like TikTok listed. I don't know if you mentioned TikTok, but that might be a good way to also get students, because it's not just parents that are like disgruntled with us, it's sometimes students. And so especially those older students, if we can maybe have a student-led advertisement that talks about each school and what they have, maybe that might, get students to be like, oh, Mom, you know what, I want to go to JTED, or I want to go to Tucson High to do their theater program, et cetera, et cetera. So I would like to add that as something to consider as well. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
All right. If there's not anything else from Ms. Escamilla, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. All right. We are on our last study information item, 8.5, Governing Board Review, Robert's Rules of Order. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the Governing Board. Number one, I want to thank the board for all of its wonderful feedback there on our promotional efforts. We certainly look forward to making some of those adjustments. And then, like I said, firing off. There's no time to lose here with enrollment. Switching gears, I want to welcome our General Counsel, Mr. Rob Ross, to the dais. So we can do what I hope is an annual refresher. I just think it's a good sign of responsible governance every year to just do refreshers in certain aspects of the work, primarily Robert's Rules and open meeting law. So here we are, and hopefully going to have an engaging refresher. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, and good evening, governing board members. We were here last year doing a similar event, although this is, and I've called it the next level. Since skiing is on my mind lately, I would say that the previous session were all green circle trails. This is more of blue squares, maybe entering into a little bit of black diamond. So it's a little bit more advanced. Hello. I can't move for this? Okay, it is on. It shows full battery too. Try again. Okay, I'll need your assistance then. So move me along. So you're gonna have to sit through this too. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so we haven't moved the slide, but I'll start talking about it anyway. Okay, so the first one is kind of, it's partially green dot and then a little bit of blue square trail, but it's talking about points of order. So a point of order, now I've got it, thank you. So a point of order is intended to raise a serious breach of the rules. That's what Robert's Rules says. That whether it's serious or not is something that you all as a board can kind of hopefully coalesce around. And whoever's raising a point of order is permitted to interrupt what's going on. Okay, so if I'm here at the podium and someone raises a point of order, then the chair should be stopping and saying, state your point of order. Doesn't mean the person raising it talks over who's ever speaking. They do still need to be recognized by the chair to speak, but the chair has a responsibility to stop the proceedings and say, please state what your point of order is to whichever member is raising it. So it's interruption, but it's still, there's still some decorum there to be recognized to speak. A point of order doesn't need a vote or a second. It is to raise a violation of rule, a serious breach of rule, and there's no vote on it. It is the chair that rules on whether there has been a breach of the rules. And the terminology that Robert's Rules uses is whether the point of order is well taken or not well taken. You don't have to say those words. You can just say, the chair is ruling that there's not a violation and move on, or there is a violation, and then decide what to do to fix it. So there are kind of some categories of what falls in to normally what people think about with a point of order. One is concerns with a motion. So say the board is proceeding with a vote. You can raise a point of order to say, wait a second, there wasn't a second. That would be a breach of Robert's Rules enough to stop the proceeding and see if there's a second before you go to a vote. So that's kind of a typical one to happen. You can also kind of informally say, hey, was there a second? With a small group like this that's worked together for a while, I've seen you do that. But if it becomes that you really need to, it seems like people are moving along, you need to raise the point of order, that would be an appropriate one to do. Decorum and order is another category. So, for example, if someone is, one of the board members is kind of giving personal attacks, this doesn't happen with you all, personal attacks to another board member, that would be a point of order to raise and say point of order, and then cite that you have board policy BBAA that has expectations for conduct that doesn't include, and in fact excludes, personal attacks with board members. So that would be an appropriate point of order. That's not something that this board has had to do for years. I've worked for other boards where it was, maybe every third meeting or so there was a point of order about having the chair stop personal attacks. When it was the chair doing the personal attacks, that made it really exciting. So that's an appropriate use of point of order. Another one with decorum and order is you're trying to have a discussion and there's a lot of noise in the gallery, or even discussion among board members. That would be an appropriate point of order because that's somewhat of a disruption of your meeting, right? So a point of order for a decorum purpose or order purpose would be point of order. Could the chair please ask, state your point would be the chair. Could the chair please ask that side conversations stop or get order in the room so that the speaker, whoever's speaking, can be heard. So that's an appropriate one. Another one that's kind of near and dear to my heart would be if the topic is straying from what's on the agenda, because not only is that a potential Robert's Rules violation, but it's also a potential open meeting law violation. So, the point of order will be mostly for the Robert's Rules, but it has the side benefit if someone is really straying from the agenda, that's not they're talking about something that's not on your agenda, to be able to stop both the Robert's Rules violation and a potential open meeting law violation. So again, point of order, state your point. The point being that the topic has strayed from the topic that is on the agenda, and ask that we go back to the agenda topic. The chair would say the point is well taken. Let's get back to the topic on the agenda. So that's like, again, this is kind of, green dot, blue square level of ski trail. You've used it a couple of times in the past couple of years. I think you've done it fairly effectively. Remember that the ultimate authority on this is your chair. It's not legal counsel. Counsel can provide advice, but the ultimate authority on a point of order is the chair. Okay. Any questions, scenarios you want to talk about with points of order? All right. So let's go to another. This is definitely a blue square, and you guys just dealt with one of these in a recent meeting. That's division of a question. So the purpose of a division of a question is when you have a multi-part motion, has several different things in it, and each section can stand on its own for a vote. This is one that does require a motion and a second, or you can ask for unanimous consent to divide it. Most cases, it's going to be pretty obvious, and you can get unanimous consent. It can be applied to an amendment that's currently happening. If someone has an amendment, I'd like to strike this line, and this line, and it makes sense to, if they're not dependent on each other, to do them separately, then you can divide that question and vote on striking this line, striking that line in a policy, for example. It is not this, whether you divide a question is not a debatable question. You just make the motion. If it's not unanimous consent, then you make the motion and it's seconded and you vote on it right away. Then you can move to the actual business, because that's a procedural thing. You really want to get to the business, right? So it's not something you talk about, well, should we or shouldn't we divide it? Now you're just delaying what you should be working on, right? You probably could have gone through the separate sections and voted on them by now. So that's not debatable. Now, what is a judgment call is whether it is a dividable question, and that's for the chair to decide. So that you don't vote on whether or not something's divisible. That's the chair's call. In most cases, a chair is going to go with the will of the board and just do it. Sometimes it doesn't make much sense, and I wanted to talk about some of those. So what's not a good candidate for division? And when you have questions that are dependent on each other, you have two parts that are dependent on each other. The motion is to form a committee to study using more solar power. Okay, you're not going to divide that question, right? Because you're not going to just form a committee with no purpose and to study solar power without saying who's going to do it is not really useful either. So that would be an example, a simple example of one where division doesn't make much sense. A motion to allocate $1 million to the legal department. I mean, dividing that doesn't make much sense. Allocate $1 million, well, for what? Allocate to the legal department, well, what are you going to allocate? So those are dependent on each other and wouldn't make much sense. And the chair can make that decision about whether or not it's a properly divisible question or not. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. Any questions on that, on dividing questions? Any examples you can think of that this might come up as you're getting into budget season and when you have for example, when you have allocations of capital funds, that could be something that you want to consider if you think it might be useful to divide a question like that. All right. So here's the fun one, filling in the blank. And this is one that I would say is definitely on the borderline of blue square and black diamond ski trail. So filling in a blank it's an amendment process for a motion. So if you have a motion where there's an item in it that the board members might have different ideas about what it should be, and examples would be a particular dollar amount to allocate to something, or a date that something should be held, a place that something should happen, if you have a nominee for a vacancy on one of your committees. Those are the kinds of things that if it seems like the board might have different ideas, then you can create a blank. And then basically you're amending the motion on the floor to have a blank and then have a board discuss how that motion is going to be amended with filling in that blank and then proceeding. It just like the previous one, it requires a second and a vote, and it's not debatable. There's really not much for a chair to do here except take the motion and the second and have a vote. When you're done with filling in the blank, now you have, just like a regular amendment, and you've done this many times, you have a motion that's amended. Now you have to go back and vote on the motion as amended. So let's talk about some examples of this one. So let's say that your motion on the floor is to allocate an additional $100,000 for security cameras in the district. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. After a couple of minutes of talking about it, it's seconded. After a couple of minutes of talking about that, you realize there are different ideas about whether it should be $100,000. Somebody says, well, I think it should be $500,000. Someone says, well, I think it should be $25,000. We have other priorities. There are different ideas. That would be a good time for someone to say, I move we create a blank. We strike $100,000 and we create a blank. So there's a motion for that, a second for that. You vote on it or get unanimous consent. Here's where the fun starts. So now you've approved creating a blank. So now it becomes a little bit less formal, and each member can say what they think should be in the blank. So the chair can ask each member, okay, what should be in the blank? Someone says 100,000. Let's say Ms. Ekstrom says 100,000. Val says, 175,000. Dr. Ravi agrees with 100,000, so he won't say anything. Ms. Shaw says, $92,500 because I have an idea what the other money can be for, and I'll be making an amendment for that in a minute. So you have these blanks. Everybody has given their say, and then the chair can then ask either by a voice vote or a raise of hands, okay, who is for 92,500? And you raise your hands. Now, the first thing that gets 3 votes, that's it. You're done. But let's say there's 2 hands for that, in favor of that, and then you go to 100,000, and there's 2 for that, and then there's 175, and there's 3 for that. There you go. You've now have a motion amended to strike that 100,000, put in 175, and then you vote on that. So again, this is black diamond stuff, and it has to be the right kind of question, and you have to kind of make an assessment as you're having a discussion on a main motion or an amendment to a motion. Okay, we have several different ideas of what this blank should be. Let's kind of use a less formal but still end up with a formal motion. Okay, you want to try one? Want to try one? All right. We'll close the evening on this. All right, so the motion on the floor is that the district, okay, you can make a point of order. This motion is not for real, okay? It's just for training purposes. The motion on the floor is that John Lennon was the most talented Beatle. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. So now you start your discussion. It's moved and seconded. So now you've got that. Does anybody have any different? Well, I'll let the chair lead the discussion here.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second on the floor on whether John Lennon is the greatest Beatle ever. So Ms. Ekstrom.
I'd like to say that George Harrison is the greatest Beatle.
I think it was Paul McCartney. Actually, Ringo Starr.
Okay, so it looks like you have several ideas, Chair. Does anybody want to create a blank?
So what's the terminology? You say, is it an amendment to create a blank, or?
I move that we strike John Lennon and create a blank.
All right.
That would be a good way.
Dr. Shaw.
All right, thank you, President Luna Rose. I will move that we strike the John Lennon and create a blank so we can have a proper debate on who is the best Beatle.
Okay.
Second?
So it's not debatable. So
It's, okay, so it's not debatable. Then I ask the board members, each one of them to go.
Well, first you need to vote on, you have the motion and second to create
Okay.
the blank. Now everybody needs, either you ask for unanimous consent or you take a vote on it.
Okay. Can I get unanimous consent on Dr. Shaw's motion?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So we've got 5-0 on unanimous consent. Now I ask for the chair.
Now you ask each member if they want to nominate names.
All right. I will start with Ms. Ekstrom.
George Harrison.
Mr. Romero?
Yes, I'm going to go back to the original one with Paul McCartney.
Dr. Shaw?
I'll pass.
You're wrong. Ms. Shaw?
I will say John Lennon is the best Beatle who became a solo artist.
Oh, okay.
Can I disagree with that?
No.
So now you have the names. Now you get to debate that. So someone can convince. Looks like somebody needs to convince Dr. Shaw of something. So you make your pitches as to which name should be in the blank.
So
as a discussion with the board.
I have a question. So what if nothing gets a 3? Do we then do a tiered system? Do we eliminate the lowest voting one, or what happens at that point?
So the kind of a strategy tip here is for the chair to, when you get to voting, to start with the one that they think is least likely to win, and in that way you get to eliminate those pretty quickly, and then you're left with the ones that are really the most viable. That works best with dollar numbers, with dollars or dates. That works really well there. So if you don't get a majority, then you're back with any question that you have that you're deadlocked on. You could say there's no amendment that passes, and we go back to the original question and vote on the original question. But the reason that a blank was created in the first place was because the board recognized that there were different opinions. There's an opportunity to sway people to get a consensus and take a vote. But if this ends up in a deadlock system, then you're back to the original motion that is not going to be amended now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the board, I can also, in this motion, since we've got the blank open, I can also stay my piece.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just like any other question, the chair can participate and vote. But the chair also has to keep track of all the suggestions that have been made, and it looks like you've got that. So now now it's the time for the persuasive part of your job, right? Talking to each other and explaining why your choice is best.
Okay. Well, I will say that I would go with Paul McCartney. If you watched the 3-hour documentary Get Back on Disney Plus or however you watched it, you would find out that Mr. McCartney was the one that wrote most of the music. I mean, he did collaborate with John Lennon, but he's the one who has kind of kept the Beatles alive long past their heyday. And just a little shout out to Ringo, because he's still out there. He just came to Tucson. So
I was just going to say, he's like, only him and Ringo are the ones alive. So, of course, he's out there promoting the Beatles.
And I'll say that John Lennon died for his talent. So he should be considered the best.
Mr. Romero.
Well, I had to go back again to Paul McCartney. After the Beatles, he was able to go on with Wings, and had a great a lot of hits with Wings and his wife Linda there. And then following that, he did do some on his solo career, and then also some duets with Michael Jackson, Ebony and Ivory. And then you can't forget when he did the theme song for Spies Like Us, with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. That's a quality thing right there too.
All right, so let's say your debate has wound down.
I'm just getting started.
He's
Just getting started.
that Paul McCartney had a house in Tucson near Sabina High School. Just want to throw that out too. Okay, thank you.
I'll say, Madam President.
Yes.
I'll say that I got to meet Paul McCartney, at least as far from him, in an airport in India 23 years ago. So I think he's the best one.
Okay. All right, so now we've got the 3.
So now you go with, let's say you had more, well, go with the one, start with the one that you think is least likely to, of the names that were thrown out at the beginning. What's the one that's least likely to get support?
Well, can I ask, wouldn't it be more strategic to one that she wants, that she thinks can get a 3-person majority, as opposed to something that happens that one she doesn't want to get a majority?
I guess if you're wanting to win, yeah, that would be a good one.
Just in case. Because the first thing that gets to 3 wins, right?
Yeah, the first one that gets to 3 wins.
Okay.
Okay. So if that's the case, then do I still have to go? Because in this scenario, George Harrison would, I think, get the least like.
So since every board member, and when every board member says a thing to put in the blank, that's not seconded, that's just a name, right? In this case. So you could start with whoever you want to, but I would say use George so that we can play this out for the next 3 minutes.
Okay.
So what you would do is say, so by show of hands, who is for George Harrison?
Okay. By a show of hands, who's for George Harrison? All right.
Okay, then you go to your next one.
By a show of hands, who's for John Lennon? By a show of hands, who's Paul McCartney?
Okay, so now you have 3. So 3 that Paul wins, and now you have filled your blank. So that is your amended motion at this point.
Okay.
Now, what's the next step?
Vote on the motion as amended?
That's right.
Okay.
So now you restate the motion with as it's amended.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is that Paul McCartney is the best Beatle ever. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
No, but was there a second?
Oh.
Well, it's already been seconded.
It's already.
Oh, yeah, it's already in second, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So it passes 3-2. Is that?
That would be the end of your.
Okay.
Now you've amended your motion by this process of filling a blank. Again, this can be used for a more complex, especially I'm thinking of policies where there may be some discussion on how much something should, how long a period should be, a waiting period for something, when a date should be. For example, open enrollment, when should applications be in for open enrollment? Say you were looking at that, you might have different ideas of what the right deadline for that is. You can create a blank and then use this process to kind of debate and discuss that and come up with an amendment.
Okay.
So
Woohoo.
those are my 3, but I'm open to have any other questions thrown at me on Robert's rules.
Mr. Romero.
Not really for Robert's rules, but just for the record in our community out there, my favorite Beatle is George Harrison. I just think Paul.
I appreciate you playing along.
Favorite Beatles on Elvis?
I just want to say, poor Ringo, once again. He always gets left out. But board members, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ross.
And we'll do this again periodically. Come up with more blue square and black diamond issues for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that is, I believe we're now at future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trujillo.
Governing Board President Luna Rose, members of the Governing Board and public, I would like to announce that on March 20th, 6 days before our board meeting on the 26th, we will be holding a forum on our proposed desegregation reallocation requests. The community will be invited. We will be advertising on all social media platforms starting tomorrow. That will be the evening of March 20th at 6 p.m. Right here. Members of the audience will have an opportunity not only to view the administration's recommended desegregation reallocation package, but also to ask specific questions of TUSD administrators over the specific departments that will be sustaining the reductions. And then, of course, we're back a week later on March 26th, where the governing board will officially consider the performance impact analysis and the administration's recommended desegregation reallocation for the purpose of continuing to fund ESSER intervention teachers. So those will be the featured events coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Also on March 26th, we certainly look forward to bringing hiring recommendations for Oyama and Ford Elementary. We are losing some longtime leaders to retirement. So certainly wish Principal Johnston and Principal Stevenson well as they move on. But we certainly are excited about welcoming some new leaders into the district. That'll be on March 26th.
Okay, thank you. Board members, anything for the good of the order? All right, well, thank you for joining us this evening. And I just wanted to mention Happy Women's History Month as well. So have a good evening.